A wonderful race last time out, so a last to first challenge gone right. And it's not often that you get to say that. From 20th to 1st, it was Tom97 who was able to take the checkered flag, but the championship had a dramatic turn with late rain bringing itself into play. Elray Geary, who was poised to run away to an over one race wins lead, finds himself now with 16 points of a margin over Tiamat Marduk. We now start the second half of this season with the official halfway race in your EA Creator Series. We're here at Hungary, and this is going to be a strong showcase on who can get track position and mastermind their way around a very technical circuit. My name's Jake Sperry, Jamie Perry, along with me for the ride today. JP, we have to talk about just how brilliant last time was and what we move into today, because you are sat watching what is an enthralling championship with Elray Geary finally starting to find what makes him an incredible driver. F1 24 is his game.
It is, but it also seems to be a few other drivers as well. It seems to be changing here and there, but there is consistency in that championship and in the field. And like you said, it comes in the form of Elray Geary in the Aston Martin, and overall in Aston Martin as a constructor as well in the championship, leading out by 198 points. And they're absolutely demolishing the rest of the field as a team, but also as Elray Geary, like you mentioned, just seeming like the spotlight this season here in Season 7. And as they come into Round 7, can it be a feature race and overall just a race win in the favor of the Aston Martin driver? Obviously, as you mentioned last time out, it was a last to first challenge that went successfully for Tom97. And obviously there were a few things that came into that I guess, talking point. You had rain, you had a safety car which brought back up the field, and there was a few opportunities that Elray Geary had, but I could almost argue he was a little aggressive at points. And so maybe at this point coming into Hungary, if he can just dial it back a little bit, make sure he can go back into that consistency that we've seen so many times, that competitive mentality, and make sure he can smash everything out, then I'm sure we can see another fantastic result and some fantastic racing on display.
I'm really sure we're going to be able to see that, but the important thing is to talk about where we've come from and where we're going. That's going to be important as we take a look at our schedule for today's action. And of course, after that fan vote Grand Prix, Hungary is there. We follow the official calendar to Belgium, and then 3 rounds in a row, Australia, Las Vegas, and the mystery Grand Prix, leading then to the final 2 rounds of the Netherlands and Monza. And I think that is a really interesting run-in this second half of the season. A lot of different circuits out there, but the one thing that I think is epitomised more than anything else here, JP, is the fact that all or most of those circuits are top-end, high-speed, overtakey style circuits. Very different to what we saw maybe a little bit earlier on in the season. We had a little bit more technicality.
No, you're absolutely right. And also to consider, if I'm not wrong, it's Australia with 5 DRS zones, if I'm not wrong. Or is it 4? Whatever the case may be, one of the most DRS-y circuits of them all, and uses the aerodynamics, especially for the new 2022 regulations that were introduced to the fullest extent that they possibly could. And they did that by probably overdoing the amount of DRS zones that they probably needed to use. But at the end of the day, you are correct. A lot of the overtaking opportunities that you would get, especially with using stuff like DRS or just overall getting that opportunity to make an overtake, would be using your top end speed and going into a corner by rather sending it down the inside, or using the outside line to get the better exit and get that throttle down just a little bit earlier. So in a lot of ways, it does come down to that. But another thing that I'm seeing a lot of in terms of a pattern of is a mixture of a lot of things. There's still a lot of diverse circuits, a lot of diversity in how technical or how, top end speed it may be, allowing for a good challenge of both. And then there's still a mixture of both real life circuits, real circuits, and then street circuits. So it still offers that diversity throughout the calendar, which doesn't keep things, easy for the drivers. It means there's still that hardship for a lot of them.
Yes, let's talk championship standings, because there is a lot to dissect in a championship that did have a little bit of change. One thing to keep in mind, no Alex Gillen last time out. So with a big 0 on the board, Alex Gillen now starts to fall backwards into the clutches of the likes of Nogueira and GB68 and Tom 97, which effectively means for third position, it's a four-car scrap. And those drivers all look around and think, you know what, with 7 rounds left and one of them being a sprint round, there's really an opportunity to attack there and go forward. Everybody wants a point here and a point there, and I think what we're seeing right now is that some drivers have found a few struggles and are finding magic flashes of moments. It's the consistency value that is getting those points through over the line, and that's why we see El Giri up on top.
Another thing we need to mention, especially with the championship, you may see that the gap between El Giri and Team Marduk has come down a slight amount. Obviously, last time out when we went to Brazil, it was Team Marduk who finished in the top 3, P3, and got into the podium. Meanwhile, was El Giri, who only managed P6, another 3 positions lower than that. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a very close fight, and they were pretty much neck and neck all the way to that checkered flag ever since the safety car came in. So it was pretty much anyone's guess on who may finish in what position. Like I mentioned, it was El Giri who was a little bit aggressive at times, but maybe Tiamat Marduk finding a little bit more pace later into the season, which could help him boost more towards the leader and could lead to a fantastic championship fight near towards the end of the season.
Yeah, you've also got to keep an eye on the likes of Unstopped Rob, for example, who missed the opening 3 rounds of the championship, but has had back-to-back finishes inside the top 5 and could definitely be a threat later on in the season. A lot of drivers trying to make some points up late to try and jump themselves up forward. So that's going to be a very important worth to keep in mind. Now, of course, this is absolutely as we're expecting here today in terms of racing action at the Hungaroring. But talk to me about this circuit, Jamie, because this is a track that has remained virtually unchanged for 50 years. The only thing they've really done is make things a little bit flatter out there on the run towards turn 10, extended over at turn 1, and taken out a very Mickey Mouse chicane when this track first inaugurated itself into racing. So this Hungaroring, very much a known quantity since 2003 in terms of this current layout.
And it really makes things interesting if that will benefit a driver, if it will still be at the disadvantage because they still know how tricky it was from previous seasons. I mean, like you mentioned, for the past 50 years, it's practically stayed unchanged with just a few minor, changes to the layout to make driving a bit easier and maybe a little better to promote itself. I mean, don't get me wrong, it has the nickname of Monaco without the barriers. I mean, the barriers are still close, especially when you go up to the run-up towards turn 4. You run wide, lose the rear end of the car. It's very easily, especially if it's wetter conditions, you will slide right into that barrier. So there are a lot of different areas of the circuit which are still just as tight as before, and the track limits, that is another big thing around this circuit. Track limits will catch you out if you run wide. That white line is strict, and it will give you penalties and it will give you warnings, and it's going to be interesting to see if any driver will pick that up and how they may need to try and work around that. If we go back to Austria, to a race that I commentated, we saw a very, very close finish with Tiamat Marduk, who finished in P2 by a single 1/10 of a second. Now, don't get me wrong, it was El Giri who was on the soft compound tires and had the overall advantage in terms of grip and traction, but on the final lap of racing to try and make up that time only by a 1/10 of a second, beating him out because of that 3-second time penalty in another situation where maybe we don't get rain, or maybe rain would be much lighter and happen earlier on in the race. It could lead to people who may pick up penalties having a much harder time picking up positions in their favor.
It definitely can, and qualifying today, I think, is going to be one of the more important ones that we see over the course of this season. Almost as important as Monaco, which we saw right at the very beginning to get an understanding of, just because that track position's difficult, and that the way that you overtake on this circuit, you very much need that final stroll, that front stretch to go through, and then immediately as you hit the brakes, the DRS activation line gives you it once again towards turn 2. So really, you've got one great place in the lap to make an overtake, and it's a scramble pretty much everywhere else.
What's great about turn 1 as well, and I was experimenting with it earlier, just trying to get a better idea on how maybe drivers would try and approach, especially off the start, but also just in overall normal situations where they may be going for an overtake on another driver. Let's say they have DRS, random lap where DRS is active. You know, it's just them and another car battling away. They have DRS and they didn't manage to make the move on that pit straight. So they go into the next straight right out of the exit of turn 1. They can use the curb of turn 1 to rotate the car and use the front end to just kind of, because it's quite low grip on a lot of the curbs, especially on the turn 1 one, but it actually works out well because it kind of hooks it and it allows you to rotate that car a little quicker. And it also means, because it is quite an awkward corner with how the DRS opens and when you can open it, you can actually open the button almost just on the apex. So it can be a little awkward opening the button at the right time, and having the help from that curb can mean you get that slight advantage not only on the exit, but also just getting a split second more of DRS advantage.
Yeah, and that split second, I think, is going to be really, really important. The drivers looking around today are hoping that it's not going to be the conditions that they have seen in the real world out there at the moment, with that ever-fluctuating raining conditions out there. I've got my eyes on lobby creation at this moment. It is showing at the moment as sunny, which would be quite nice for these drivers to jump in and get themselves there together. But the ultimate way that they're looking around, we don't quite know how everyone's going to be feeling about the way that they go in and they jump. As we know, more drivers practice in the sunshine than they do in the rain, so it's about familiarity and what these drivers are hoping for when they step on the circuit, and do they feel comfortable with those 4 boots underneath them.
Well, talking about drivers as well, and also just how comfortable we may feel, we have the usual reserves that will come in. Obviously, there's never going to be a grid with full 20 drivers, unless maybe the first few, races, where all drivers may be available. But over time, people do have different priorities and such, and it does mean that there is an opportunity for reserves not only to have an opportunity to race, but also to showcase what they can do on a circuit in Formula 1 with the best of the best. So the reserves that we do have for this evening of racing for Hungary, we've got Hoodie Pete and Bam, who will be reserving both Red Bulls. So no full-time Red Bull driver will be racing this afternoon or this evening or this night or this morning, wherever you are in the world. It's going to be Dat Guy, Vince, and Mr. Dale J, who will be missing out. And like I mentioned, Hoodie Pete and Bam, who will be reserving for them. You've got Jorpa who will be reserving for Curbs in the Williams, and Dark Viper GT not making his first return getting the mixture of my words there wrong. Making another return for F1, replacing Raisin Chai in the Ferrari.
Yeah, so you are definitely seeing a number of drivers being a little bit out of position, but what we do know, though, is that 8 of the top 9 are here then in terms of what we've got going on. So the championship is going to be a prime focus out there at this point. And we talk momentum being a really important factor, and momentum, I think, has been the key talking point about this season, because often we have found this season that drivers will pick up momentum and then ever so quickly, be it a safety car, be it a moment with a battle, that momentum gets rocked. And that's what we've been getting a lot of over the course of this season. Momentum has been shifting a lot quicker than in previous seasons.
And one of my favorite words to use, especially in wet conditions, more than anything else, is momentum. Because especially it takes it literally, but also it takes it metaphorically. And what I mean is, let's say it starts to rain, DRS is no longer active. Now you need to use the momentum of your car out of the exits of corners and try and maximize how quickly you can get down on that throttle to allow yourself to get that momentum and try and get any type of opportunity to make a move. And it's especially, applies itself in a situation where, DRS is deactivated, or, where rain is starting to fall down onto the circuit. And so in those situations, it can be really helpful to try and get that momentum. And then also, metaphorically speaking, just having that momentum on your side can also play quite a benefit in terms of your pace.
And that benefit, I am sure we are going to see. It's full length here in the EA Creator Series. If you haven't had a chance to already, you can see on the top of the screen where everywhere you can find us in terms of the F1 Creator Series. And you can check all our links as well down in Twitch at this point in time. I'm sure someone will put them through, so where you can find us over the course of our socials. But just to get a little bit of an eye-opener here, Jamie, in terms of what these drivers are looking at in qualifying, this is exactly what you'd find on a Formula One weekend. The only difference is going to be in Q1, where you're going to be expecting maybe a couple of drivers to go out on the intermediate tyres if it's a dry track, to try and get one bonus championship point.
And I think I've mentioned this before. Last time I was on for F1, even though it's Inter's pole, and even though it's such little points that are in consideration, it's 1 point. 1 point can still separate a championship win and you finishing in P2 in the championship. And it really does come down to those close margins in terms of points. You know, it could come down to just that one single point that you had by taking an Inter's pole that another driver couldn't get. And simply because you got that extra point, you have the advantage compared to someone else. So every single point counts, and it's why I believe a lot of these drivers will be taking into consideration for that Inter's pole.
And one thing to note as well, no driver here, Jamie, has got the Inter's pole twice this season. It's been 6 different drivers with 6 different Inter's poles.
No, you're right. You are completely correct on that. It's intriguing, but it almost tells you, let's say you get treaded tires. I mean, it's not even treaded in a lot of ways. It's more grooved is the intermediates. And you put them on a dry tarmac, at least majority of the time. It could be at genuine intermediate conditions, which then, still applies to the Inter's pole. But it's what makes it so intriguing is simply when it comes down to the fact that there'll be drivers who can really control themselves on those groove tires, have great car control, and be able to just have full stability over the car. And there'll be other drivers who, at other circuits, may have the exact same amount of stability and car control, but coming into that race, they just don't understand how they can still keep that, same stability and car control at that particular circuit, because maybe the way the tarmac is, maybe there's less rubber that's set down onto the tarmac, and that makes it harder for them to try and keep that same control they had previously.
Yeah, it very much is. We are just about starting here, qualifying around the Hungaroring. 18 minutes on the clock, and drivers getting their setup sorted. They will be now locked under parc fermé conditions, and drivers will now start making their way out of the pits and on for their outlaps and their sighters of this circuit. Bright sunshine here at the Hungaroring, which is going to be smiles aplenty. We look with Alex Gillen as he looks to put himself back out on circuit. Currently, a couple of name interesting things to go out there. F1 Scott is now F2 Scott here for this race, Jamie, which means his engine's probably been downgraded.
That, or he wants to be demoted down to F2 again. Obviously, in previous seasons, he used to drive in Formula 2, so maybe he's had enough of Formula 1. He's maybe not finding it as fun, or he's just finding it a bit too challenging. I mean, don't get me wrong, he had a fantastic battle throughout the Brazilian Grand Prix, especially in the first 20 laps, I believe it was, where we saw a fight between him and a few other drivers. I believe it was Tiamat Marduk, El Ray Guri was a part of it, Rakirikon was a part of it as well, Tom 97 was there as well. The point I make is there was an ongoing battle between those drivers, and one of those drivers that was involved was F1 Scott. And so maybe it's just taking the pressure away from him, because maybe he's competitive enough for Formula 1, but maybe he just wants that pressure off of him.
Yeah, maybe that pressure's going to be important. We saw there Alex Gillen with the intermediate tyres on. They don't actually have that much of a differentiation in pace compared to what you see out there. It's only about 4 or 5 seconds, but of course you'd shred those tyres along the bases. Let's go along with Ben Daly, Tiamat Marduk here, along for the flyer out there on circuit, rushing down towards turn 1, a massive pile of smoke down there from the car in front. But then you are looking to try and pick up a bit more momentum, once more descending and looking for turn 2, where it does plateau over to the outside as much as possible. It funnels to that section. You've got to find that quick switch back though to turn 3 and then back up the hill for the committed turn 4. It's basically one line suits all through this corner, because you are on the ragged edge at the end of the opening sector over at turn 5 here, Jamie, and looking towards the chicane in the middle sector.
No, it does, and then you need to try and find the right braking zone, completely try and avoid where it starts to bump up that big elevation change on the curbs, because it can unsettle the car and just mean you lose out by a tenth or two and completely significantly affect how the rest of your lap may come out. Obviously, going through into turn 8 and 9 before going back down, from 10 and then into 11 and 12, back a few corners, but then going into the hairpin of 13. And this one's really interesting on where you want to kind of place your car for braking. You can brake later and kind of rotate later and try and use a bit more of the throttle, or you can try and still, go a little, brake a little earlier and use a bit more of the curve, like apex, to try and corner around it, with Tia McMurdoch, who now goes P3 with a 1:18.353.
Well, Alex Gillen goes about 4/10 quicker. M-Sky Z puts a 14.9 on the board to say, you know what, I'm not messing around, I just want to get my place in Q2, a driver that has been so influential in this series. 6 wins to his name, 14 pole positions, 17 podiums, but a driver who's been a little bit out of form this season out there. It's going to be about 7 minutes here in order to get that time down on intermediates, and there is El Reguiri trying, but not getting close enough in terms of it. Nogueira getting an 18.1 down, and Alex Gillen, at this moment in time, of course, took the intermediates pole at the opener, is looking for an opportunity to take his second intermediate pole time out there. And of course, there's another fact to keep in mind about that intermediate pole. No driver who has taken intermediate pole has gone on to win the race.
That's intriguing as well. I'm surprised by that statistic, but you're right. When I really start to recollect my thoughts on previous races, you're right. Any driver who is on the intermediate pole has not actually ended up winning it, which is also intriguing, and maybe that practice that they get on the groove tires just ends up affecting themselves in the race because they're not getting enough practice on the slicks. Now, I highly doubt that is the case, but you never know.
You never do, and of course, after those first attempts, drivers will launch themselves back into the pits. Peya, currently the fastest on a 1:14.6, 2/10 quicker than Tom's Alpine out there, so definitely finding on a brilliant amount of work in terms of the lap. So that's certainly going to be out there and doing a great job as we take a look at Tom at 97 out there on a set of intermediate tyres, gets over the line then before 11 minutes and goes with an 18.4, so nowhere near quick enough to take that inter-pole lap time. And drivers like F2 Scott, for example, out there on soft, not wanting to play that game, just wanting to book that place. We'll lose the bottom 5 drivers here in terms of qualifying, but everyone will be searching for those laps. It's the longest session of the 3, where it goes from 18 minutes to 15 to 12 in order to work out who is the fastest out there. And of course, in this early session here, Jamie, and especially a circuit like this, which is very folded and only 74 seconds long, track position and lap traffic, so to speak, is going to be very difficult to manage around this circuit in Q1.
Absolutely, which is currently on board with F2 Scott, and it's always a really awkward braking zone throughout 8, 9, 10, and 11. He's done fantastically, though, and coming up to line goes P4, only 2 positions behind his teammate of Skyzy, who set down a 14.752, so I'm sure Scott will not be disappointed with that one. We obviously now switch to Infratic in the Ferrari in P20. However, he's not as close to the Mercedes of Stop Rob in P18, who now with DRS active comes across the line and does set down P1. What a fantastic time of 14.629, really starting to show some competitive times, but not even that faster than what we saw from Peya in the V-Carb, and really does start to show you how close it can be in terms of gaps and margins, with that Mercedes still taking P1, but Peya still right on the rear end of the Mercedes and giving him a right challenge for his money.
I would say at timer's end, it is Alex Gillen who will have the intermediate fastest lap. Tom out there retiring from the session, so we'll go no further than 4th fastest in this one, a 14.8 to try and find some security. That's going to be some bold prophecy there as we focus on Gwot up the hill through turn 4 on this flyer and flicking into turn 5. You've got to be committed on the exit. Very easy to put the power down a little bit too early through that section, and dancing his way through the chicane and looking to challenge. Gwotz is one of those drivers who's needing a little bit of form out there at this moment. We'll take a little look here at Infratic here on the replay, trying to go through third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear out there, trying to run up through and hoping that there was going to be a time. We'll see up the top of the hill what the trouble is, and the answer is an invalidated lap time, followed by MSkyZ being there just in front, a little bit slow. So that maybe would have frustrated Infratic slightly in terms of his qualifying efforts, realizing that MSkyZ was on his outlap there just in front.
But could you argue that was still the kick Sauber's fault? Now, don't get me wrong, he is definitely in the way of the Ferrari, and he's definitely just causing a few problems in terms of lap times, but he did still run wide on his own accord, and there was still that slight gap in between the two drivers, which may have caused that problem to begin with. So, you know, you could definitely argue the point there as GB68 in the Aston Martin setting down to 14.566 and goes roughly, actually right on the dot, 30 milliseconds faster than Tiamat Marduk in P2. McLaren also going up momentarily. So a few more drivers starting to really slip in with Aston Martin, the main man himself, Elray Guri of 14.258. And now you can really start to see a few more improvements being set down on the board as more times continue to be put down.
Well, it's a 10th and a half here in Q1 for Elray Guri. Every reason to be excited. This is Matty 13, who is out there, the only driver yet to put a time in. Pratic's just gone 11th. So this is going to be where you sit down and search for Matty D13. He's looking for a lap time that will move him outside of the bottom 5, which is currently being gate-kept by Gwatz on a 15.3, Hoodie Pete and Bamford MB. So both of the Red Bulls, Merakis Williams and Tom 97's Visa Cash App Racing Bull are the four drivers there with Matty. That I wouldn't say was representative on a 22.2. That puts a time down, but 7.5 minutes, you're going to have to start thinking here that you're running out of opportunities. You're going to have to try and find a little bit of help out there. And it will be a question of how gripped in this circuit is and how many drivers actually feel like they are comfortable at the moment, with the drivers at the top being almost 2 seconds clear of safety.
Well, on a set of intermediates, it's definitely not going to be an easy challenge, and we're also considering we're only in Q1 right now. We still got Q2 and Q3, and Q1, the first session of the entire weekend format here in Formula One. I'll tell you what is definitely going to be the case. Your tires are still going to be struggling with the tarmac, and you're definitely going to have some pretty significant troubles when it comes to the fact of, you know, grip being on the tarmac. The rubber wouldn't be laid down. And it does mean that you just need to try and find different areas to try and find that traction where maybe other areas wouldn't be offering it. And that can be a little difficult at times, but if you can get it done as quickly and as effectively as possible, you can find the benefit more than anything else.
Well, here over the line, that's an improvement of 115.4 from Matty D13. Only goes to 18th. It puts both of the Red Bulls down at the bottom. Gwatz has dropped down in. So too now has Dark Viper outside then of the top 15. It's now F2 Scott on the bubble on a 15 flat with 6 minutes to go. And that's Sky looking a little bit dark now. So these drivers are looking around, and there might be a scramble to try and put a lap time in out there at this point with Alex Gillen there, and that's not going to help Matty 13, sliding it about there at 5, grabbing a bit of grass. That will certainly sully the tyres on his in-lap.
No, it will, and it definitely won't help him in terms of how that friction has now come across onto the tarmac, just causing a bit of rubbing will also cause degradation and the rubber to kind of split, and that causes a whole big loss of traction and grip with the tarmac to the rubber, and just loses that overall friction. Currently on board with Meraki in the Williams, and coming around the final corner, just needing to then come into the pit lane instead, and deciding that he has nothing left in the tank to follow with. Obviously, we can't currently see what tires they're on and how many laps they have done on them, but as we can now see, for all the viewers to get a better idea on where they may be on the circuit and how long it may be until another person decides to push onto the circuit.
Well, you get a sense that drivers want to set their best lap on their first run through on their tyres. They have to go to lap 2. It's either a temperature issue or they're going to have to scrabble with slightly I would say, less than optimal tyres out there, very much like having a rack full of consonants in a game of Scrabble out there, some would say. F2 Scott moved up to 12th position. Tom is really in trouble here. It was a big gamble to dive and say, I'm done, after about 6 minutes of qualifying, and now sitting in 13th on a 14.8. That margin is just 0.3 of a second, and Tom will be looking around at everyone else going, you know what, I don't feel safe, and I might have to be down near the back. Currently now, Gwot on a lap. Tiamat Marduk and GB68 feel that they're quite safe at the moment. So to Jopa in 9th is going to say, I can't do any more, nor to can Nagera. 4 minutes to go. There's only going to be a handful of drivers here who are going to be able to improve or feel like they can improve.
Well, whatever the case may be, there's other drivers still looking to try and push themselves into the top 16. You're right, Meraki retiring from the session there, but it is G-Watts in P17 looking to try and make himself all the way to the timing line to see what he can do on the circuit. And it will be, with DRS active, only a 15.429 improvement nevertheless. But you're right, rain is falling on the tarmac. A very slight sprinkle, but it does seem to start to darken ever so more.
Well, if that rain is making a factor and it's making itself known, I think these drivers who are outside of what they need have just realised they have timed this wrong, and it means that Tom might just been spared some blushes, he spared some bushes apparently, over on the rain that has just started to fall. So that is a little bit of luck that's there. Dark Viper, the driver on the outside looking in, pretty much everybody has decided to dive in. Even Safsho feels like there's going to be no improvements out there as Dark Viper has to teeter the Scuderia Ferrari through the middle sector on what is an ever-decreasing tightrope with the rain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is really starting to complicate itself for a lot of drivers looking to try and push themselves into the top 15, and for the bottom 16, it just makes things that little trickier. Now that rain is starting to approach itself in the closing stages here into Q1, the question really starts to lie, is there another opportunity, or do they all just have to kind of give up and realize this is it? We don't get another opportunity. The traction and grip is way too low. The rain is falling too hard. There isn't that friction. There isn't that heat connecting to the tarmac. You can see Hoodie Pete already wriggling and squirming around the tarmac, trying, looking, desperately clawing for grip and finding nothing at the moment. And clearly the rain has done too much damage in terms of what the grip may be able to offer. And I think qualifying has come to an abrupt ending very shortly.
Yeah, a couple minutes early, full opposite lot from Hoodie Pete, who will look down and say, you know what, I'm going to have to do this one from the back, not the day that the Red Bulls want their 19th and 20th with times in the late 15s and early 16s. So that pretty much will sum up the qualifying session there. A spin through the penultimate corner, turn number 13 out there on circuit, and doing doughies to go back in a straight line. I think that will pretty much confirm that. DRS officially disabled, which will mean that on the outside looking in, Dark Viper GT, Gwot, Matty D13, Bamford MB, and also Hoodie Pete. Those are your 5 who will not advance beyond Q1.
Yeah, interesting. This is definitely complicated things, to say the least. I mean, the rain has not helped in the slightest. It has caused the very abrupt ending to Q1, and it has meant that there is a bottom 16 now confirmed, which of course is Dark Viper GT, a man who normally does quite well as a reserve driver, both in Formula 2, but also in Formula 1, and on this occasion, with him reserving for Ferrari, it hasn't worked out. The rain came at the wrong time for him. It's only a 1:15.193, and it keeps him in that position. G-Watts as well, only P17. The McLaren looked to be going a little faster, however, it wasn't fast enough on a time where it was still completely dry on the circuit, and it had meant that he lost out Matty D13, Bamford, and Hoodie Pete to follow in pursuit. So both the Red Bull reserves also bringing down any type of position that they may gain in the race. And it also starts to beg the question, I understand it's only Q1, but how will this kind of continue going into the race? Obviously, I can only assume the rain will continue to increase as we go into Q2 and Q3, but then will it continue into the race? Will it get worse into the race? As you can see, there is Elroy Guri F1 on P1 And that really starts to beg the question, is that kind of looking for the future? And as we go further down there, is your bottom 16 all for the viewers to have a better look at?
Well, it's okay being the fastest in Q1, but that won't guarantee your pole position. It's in Q3 where you got to get that. But before Q3, we got to cycle through Q2. We got to take 5 more drivers away, and they are under Parc Fermé conditions. So how they've set up that car is going to be interesting, whether they've gone for something more akin to the race. Are we going to be seeing maybe a dry race, for example, Jamie, and drivers who are out there who are qualifying well because they've got a wet weather set on?
It's going to be intriguing, and I can only assume Parc Fermé would be on. So in a situation where, for example, they've made a setup that would be better for drier conditions, they go into wet conditions, maybe not expecting it, or maybe just better practice in drier conditions compared to maybe intermediate or full wet conditions for those tires. It could lead to them maybe struggling a lot more because, you know, let's say they go into a corner, it's way more understeery because they were expecting the conditions to be dry. Instead of making it, you know, having maybe slightly higher downforce or suit it so then they don't, you know, over-rotate the car, causing it to lose the rear end. And because the traction is lower, because it is wet, it could lose the rear end by slipping it and going completely 360 round in a big circle.
Very much could, and that is where drivers are going to be maybe a little bit outside of their comfort zone here in Q2. So everybody's going to be looking around at everyone else going, what do you have on the table? This is the best that I can offer. So that maybe is something that we're going to be keeping a close eye out on when those drivers go out on circuit. And we've got a couple who are out there early to go forward. And really, that rain is starting to bucket it down. And I wonder how much. Look at how that track has developed in what is the in-game time of about 15 minutes there. That is what is known as a sodden circuit. And those intermediate tyres are going to have to get to work very quickly in dispelling some of that standing water.
Well, the groove tyres, even in wetter conditions, can still work effectively. If the tyre temps are in the right window, you can get them into there and you can keep it at that window, then they can work effectively even in full wet conditions. Obviously, the Aston Martin just making slight contact there with one of the brake boards entering into the exit of turn 8 there, and obviously through turn 9 as well, 10, and then eventually through into 11 before going downhill. Just a slight downhill part, not huge elevation changes, but can affect how the car can feel in terms of the ride height, especially before then doing the right-hand turn corner going into 12 and then eventually 13 at the hairpin, sticking nice and close to the apex of the corner, but you do want to avoid the curb because touching that in any type of way, especially in wet conditions, can completely unsettle the car, and you could also find yourself going into a barrier quite easily as GB68 crossing line, getting us going for the first fast lap here in Q2 in the intermediates. And it started as an Inters pole for an extra point, but now they are officially on the intermediates just for simple grip and traction to set down a time due to the weather that has now enforced itself here at the Hungaroring, making its way down into turn number 2 and then eventually a quick rotation into 3 before going back up the hill.
Yeah, definitely needing to try and find the balance, a little bit of a wiggle going out of turn 3, up over the top of the hill. Just about gets away with that one there on the curve. The lap time not invalidating itself. And look again, having a scrap of oversteer and then having to battle with the curb, and the paint on there is definitely a lot different out there towards the asphalt surface. And once more, having to really fight. A little bit of over-rotation. The car very tail happy out there for GB68. This is a scruffy lap that we're seeing out there, and we are really getting the sense right now that GB68 is making this look just as difficult as it truly is out there on this lap. Again, another snap of oversteer over on the curb, trying to be early on the power as possible, and you have to drive smooth to be fast. But again, it's like trying to watch an octopus wrestle in a washing machine. It's basically limbs everywhere with the hands, trying to save what is there. We'll see what this is as a banker over the line. 27.8, that was a tough watch of a lap.
Well, we're not too far away. I believe it's going to be the McLaren next across the line. Williams of Jorpa, however, it's a 27.004, so practically flat on the 27s, and that is quite a margin in terms of difference in times. 8/10 practically ahead, nearly 9/10 ahead of GB68, and Perya and Nogueira not able to go any faster than GB68, and it could show you that maybe Jorpa and the Williams setting something that was better suited for both dry and wet conditions, and Williams really extracting that at the moment. Tom and Safso in the Alpine not too far off, but still 3 to 5 tenths is not close margins, and they just seem to be pulling away a little bit more to the Williams there. Meraki and P4 not closer to his teammate either, so maybe Jorpa setting up the car to perfection and allowing himself a perfect opportunity to potentially line up for a pole position into Q3. However, getting ahead of ourselves because there's more drivers to set down at time, but it is a big possibility later on. Alex Gillen entering into the third and final sector, making sure to just stay on the right apex of the corner, as I mentioned. Avoid the curb at all costs because it can completely and utterly affect how you take your line and how the exit of the corner will be. The Haas across the line, it's going to be a 26.675. Well, that is speaking volumes, and that is clearly working in the favor of the Haas. However, they may have set up the car maybe a little bit more downforce, allowing him to just stick to the track a little bit more.
Yeah, that's wonderful from Alex Gillen. That time pretty much says all you need to know. Drifting through the final corner goes Tiamat Marduk. We'll see where he goes. 5th fastest there on a 27.6. Right now, the margin is 28.4. M Sky Z is there. And Unstopped Rob really throwing the car through at turn 9, into turn 10. This small flick, that does count a corner, by the way. Turn 11, turn 12, into 13, and then leading, of course, to 14. Out there on circuit, trying to find the lap end and really finding that this is a tough start to qualifying. But Unstopped Rob, unsurprisingly throwing it in. But Tom 97 says, you know what? You can't keep me back. I was last time we were going and I got a win. Now I'm gunning for a pole.
You know, he had such a fierce and competitive battle in Brazil, completely scraping and having just such a grueling fight from P20 to P1. I mean, he managed to get on top near towards the end of the race and stayed in that position, which got him the win in Brazil. But maybe he hasn't been able to see what the front looks like. But maybe Alex Gillen goes, yeah, maybe not today. I'd like to see what the front feels like, and the Haas going up into P1 with a 26.295. Not too shabby indeed. That's practically 3/10 ahead, but more towards a 2/10 margin as Infratic in the Ferrari approaches into the final corner, getting a little bit wriggly there and just need to fight the steering wheel, but across the timing lines, a 27.170, and off the pace is Ferrari as he goes into P6, just staying in the midfield as Unstopped Rob goes P4. Nogueira up into P1. Wow, and Tom, just like that, snatching it away, and times are coming quick and fast, competitive than ever, and a 26.143, now the fastest time here in Q2.
Well, you definitely sense there's a drier line forming, and that's why you're seeing those times starting to tumble out there. Tom on a 26.1 looks good. Remember when Jorpa had the fastest time on a 27 flat? Now he's the driver on the bubble, and that is a difference that we weren't necessarily expecting. F2 Scott making that run over for the line. Oh, he took about 4 or 5 attempts through the corner, and he can only go 12th fastest there in the Kick Sauber, so only able to jump up 3 spots and needing a bit of work to do then in the final 7 minutes and 11 seconds out there in this one. Alex Gillen making a charge, 26.2, his fastest time. He puts a 26.5 down, so not as quick with that attempt, and maybe drivers are going to be a little bit more cautious with how they go out there and drive, because of course they'll be scrubbing. Look at Tiamat Marduk there, JP. He was absolutely water surfing right now, and again, just having 2 tyres out of the natural line.
In the classic Australian way of saying it, bloody hell, that did not look very nice. 26.469, P4 on the board. He has found improvements, but that McLaren would not be happy with that. He want to go further up. Tom across the line does find no further improvements, 4.5 tenths off what he set previously, but still in P1 for the time being. You also have the Aston Martin of El Rey Guri, who now goes P1. 25, 849 in the first ones into the 25s, and Meraki to follow in close pursuit with a 25, 832. So both in the 25 8s and close enough where they could almost touch tips with one another. And Tom 97 next across the line. Now he wants to go back up, and this is what I'm starting to see a bit more of a pattern. Every single driver that had their first run around is starting to figure out where they lost and found time, and now they're maximizing where they can find the time and use it to the best of their advantage. Another thing that needs to be considered is using the offline part of the circuit. Obviously, in normal dry conditions, that's the dirty part of the circuit. That's where all the rubber has flicked off, and that is where you can find less grip. But in a place where rain is falling and it washes away the rubber, that allows yourself into more grip, because where all the rubber has been flicked off onto the offline part of the circuit, that's where all the rubber is now, and you can use that for traction and grip, unlike what you may be able to use it for in dry conditions. Ferrari across into the final corner.
Yeah, this is Impratic, who now goes third fastest on a 25.7. It definitely looks a lot drier on that leading line. You can see the standing water definitely not as strong as it was. Yes, it's still raining, but out there they are definitely clearing the rain out there. Peya going third fastest on a 25.6. Some drivers are going 3, 4, sometimes even 5 laps out there in terms of their stint, just to try and get a bit of time under wraps they've got going on. We normally see one car, one lap going through, and there's also that fuel burn-off to keep in mind as well. It's not often that you see a race car, especially these Formula machines, out there for 5 straight laps. And F2 Scott thinking about soft tyres on the gamble. Is this track going to dry enough for a soft tyre to work? It's bold, but he's gone back to an intermediate.
Well, clearly F1 Scott does not have the confidence to believe he will make it to the end of this qualifying session in the top 10. So maybe a gamble is what he needs to potentially make it into that top 10. You're right, rain has stopped falling. I'm not seeing a single part of that cloud sprinkling away anymore. And so maybe the water's starting to clear up a bit. And though the circuit would still be damp, give it a minute or two, and it could allow for that opportunity that F1 Scott and also Yorper and a few more drivers who are in the pit lane getting that opportunity. You can see GB68 on an outlap on a fresh set of intermediates. He will be kicking himself knowing that maybe the softs was the better opportunity than what he currently has. And down in P15, he needs to be on a new set of tires compared to what he is now.
Well, you're really getting the sense that if you're out there on inters at this moment in time, now would be the perfect time to abandon the lap, jump in, quickly get some softs on, and then start running for the laps. You've got 3:22. You've got enough time to make that happen. Peya jumping into the pits, 5 laps out there on those inters, finally going to decide, you know what, he's going to be there. And I think he's just set a 25.6 out there and done an incredible job with his lap times, putting everything together. But those lap times don't mean anything if those need to go out on a set of the soft compound tyres. That will basically mean, very different from what we saw in the opening session here, JP, that all of these drivers who thought they were safe because there was rain, now they're going to feel unsafe because there's no rain. You have to be out on track. And you can see GB68 2.2 seconds quicker going through the middle sector.
Wow. Another thing to consider, think about a Williams driver like Yorper will obviously stick on board with GB68, who's now going into turn 13 out of the exit, trying to maximize as much as possible, using the downforce to stick to the ground as much as possible, and even on the intermediate, sets down a 23.957. So now because there's less water, it's still allowing him, because they are grooved tires, so they can still work, obviously not as well as previously, but they can still work in dry conditions with Team Marduk there. But Yorper, who seems to be a little bit more comfortable in wetter conditions, now on the drier tires, may find it a little bit more difficult than what we saw previously.
I think GB68 and Tiamat Marduk are in grave danger out here in qualifying. They are on intermediate tyres. DRS has just been made available. Everybody else is out there on a soft tyre. And it's, I think, second in the championship, might just be giving himself a lot of work to do, because he's got no time to come back in, get tyres, and get round for a flyer.
No, Tia McMardick has definitely put himself on a disadvantage, and with that gap, that deficit that is separated to Elray Geary, that is not what he needs in any scenario. Obviously, it just comes down to timing, and it did seem like he was still in the pit lane, but he obviously went for the choice of intermediates from what GB68 set down, and has not worked out in his favor. So the McLaren in P11 may go up in position right now at this current time, but wait until you see all those outlap tabs become fast laps, and then they answer the question that I'm sure so many answering as GB improves on his time at 28.40. What can Tia McMardick set down? A 19.855. But here is where we start to see the competitive times come back rolling here at the Hungaroring. How can they improve? Where can they find the grip and traction? Is it even damp on circuit anymore? Will it just be pure benefit being on the soft compound tires?
MSkyZ then will start his final attempt on a flying lap. This will feel like a one-lap shootout here in Q2, where everybody is scrambling about, hoping they've got it. Massive front left locking in through turn 2. That is all about the trail break there from MSkyZ, and now really trying to fly up through this opening sector. 3 seconds quicker than his first sector time, which is a 26.5. He's currently on course for a 1:17 if he can continue to find this sort of pace. Dancing about there through the chicane. Now he's thinking about what's next. Checkered flag out. Everybody has got themselves over the line. GB68 and Tia McMardick will be the first 2 drivers over the line to try and find their time. But now you start wondering who's got what. 8 seconds up by the middle sector. This is going to be mega. 19.4 by GB68. Tia McMardick will be next over the line. He improves to an 18.2, but MSkyZ is going to fly his way over the line. We'll see what he's going to be able to manage as he looks to cross the stripe. Bang! 14.5. It is not even close. And Tia McMardick and GB68, the death knell is finding itself in the coffin. Safsho with a 14.7, but watch out, because Nagera has just put the fastest time down on the board, and everybody's going to be scrambling. Tom 97 there on a 14.6. Watch out, this is Unstop Rob, hoping his time's there. Meraki in danger now in 7th. Unstop Rob can only go 9th, and he's on the bubble for Infratic, Elray, and Yorpa. That's Infratic, or sorry, Elray going fastest. Infratic can't find a qualification. Yorpa's in the pit, and Unstop Rob is out.
Wow. And that is quite literally getting the nail on a coffin and hammering it down to the death of these drivers who were looking so competitive, and it falls away from them in a moment's notice. And there is no way from coming back with that one until it comes to racing action. Qualifying 2 coming to an end, and big names out due to the fact that they were still on the intermediates. Tia McMardick, GB68, Yorpa, and then still including Unstop Robin and Infratic, even on the soft compound tires. They couldn't find the pace. They had better times than what we saw previously, but it wasn't enough. They needed to be better than good. They needed to be great, and they couldn't deliver on this occasion. So P11 and 12 on there, and now top 10 set down. We have got a fantastic shootout for pole position. Who will take P1? Who will take P10? Who will take positions in between? Q3 is only spicing up to be even better than that, Jake.
It really is, and with no Tia McMardick 13th on the grid for the race, it is damage limitation here at the Hungaroring. Look around at everybody else. This is a chance for Alex Gillen, a chance for Nagera, a chance for Tom 97 to make some ground, a chance for Elray Geary to spread his wings and go out and challenge. Bone dry for Q3. Who will put their best foot forward? We have seen Elray Geary fastest in Q1. We have seen Elray Geary fastest in Q2. Are we about to see here, JP, Elray Geary fastest in Q3? We'll take a little look at the replay here on the final laps. I believe this would have been Yorpa's issue, and that is a lap invalidation at the worst possible time.
So the time that he set down most recently was on the intermediates, and having the only opportunity to be on the softs, invalidating completely lost the opportunity to potentially get into the top 10, and that is all she wrote on that occasion for the Williams driver. And unfortunate for Yorpa, who just seemed to be looking quite competitive near the end of that invalidation out of the exit of turn 10 and 11 did not serve him well.
No, it really didn't, and that really did not pay dividends. We'll start from 15th, and some aggressive tyre warming there by Shafsho, coming up the hill, looking to try and really get everything sorted. That is about as aggressive as you can possibly get going forward. The
breaking your arm
aggressive is big.
Okay, that's keyboard and mouse aggressive. That is you spamming A and D, I think. I don't know. I'm not on keyboard usually, but whatever the keys would be that would go left and right, that is okay. Oh my god, that's almost overheating the tires type of tire warming.
Well, wants to get up to speed quite quickly. A, of course, on the keyboard stands for am going left. D goes direction's going to be right. And that is a case of, well, effectively it's straight on. Let's go out there and put a qualifying time we can be proud of on the board. So Shafsho will be the first driver to keep a focus on in what is now bright, glorious sunshine here in Q3. Dropping now and descending down the hill to this plateau braking zone of turn 1, really throwing the car in as late as possible through that section, and Shafsho now is looking at just stringing together a great outlap and really torturing those tyres. And they do have a memory, and they do remember what's going on with them, but here you just need to get the most out of them. That's what Shafsho is looking up over the hill. Goodness me, how aggressive he is going around this circuit. He is throwing the car everywhere with abandon.
Yeah, Alpine really starting to show you what they're willing to do to put it on the line for a potential P1 to their name in qualifying. The purple lap that everyone currently aims for here in Q3. This is where they need to put it all on the line. One final time in qualifying, 9 minutes on the clock. You may get one or more runs still remaining, multiple with that amount of time on the board, but it's not about that. It's about having that opportunity to set down a time that cannot be beaten. And you can see how Shafsho's just struggling to really maximize how quickly he can get down that throttle. The downforce clearly in his favor. It's a 14.899, and he'll be happy with that one. But how can Elray Guri improve? He does do exactly that, and a 14.436. My God, that Alex Gillen Haas is on an absolute roll. He wants another opportunity to potentially be in P1, and that is a 14.153 in quick succession. And now you can really start to see how fast they want to go to potentially have that opportunity for that purple lap.
Sky Z looks like he's in a bit of form right now, in second position. It's the best we've seen him for a very long time. He's 16th in the championship, and he is making great progress. F2 Scott right now out on a flying lap, but Alex Gillen now setting the marker at a 14.1. Question will be whether those 114s can be broken into in qualifying, and this is where drivers are looking at trying to put down a marker so that if it does go wrong, they've got a place they can go out there and throw it together. F2 Scott right now is looking at this, and I think this might be one of the first times we've seen this season both of the Kick Saubers into Q3.
Well, F1 Scott has been competitive in races. He's fought with drivers in podium positions, but he hasn't been able to showcase it in qualifying consistently or even have the opportunity to even do it in Q3. He gets that opportunity. He gets an opportunity to get nice and high in that timing sheet. How can he maximize it to the best of his ability? Well, that is something we are going to see by the end of this lap. Right now into the third and final sector. Slight elevation changes, warping around into turn 13. Stick close to the apex, not onto the curb. And then you do the exact same thing at the hairpin of turn 14. You get the throttle down, you use the DRS, and that is a Sauber up into P5. He'll be happy with that one. However, teammate is still in P2 and significantly ahead of him by roughly 6.5 tenths of a second. So how can F1 Scott improve from there? Not so sure. But Meraki now on his fast lap, currently going through into 8, 9, and 10.
Well, there is Meraki having a little bit of a look now through the middle sector. Seems a little bit unperturbed there. The wind blowing effervescently there right now from the fan that's probably there off to his right-hand side at this moment in time. Really locking up the tyres here and struggling maybe a little bit to get it all turned in. We'll see what this lap is going to do for Meraki. 12, 13, 14, fifth position there on a 14.7. That's okay, that's decent. I'd take a third row start around here. You'd really get the opportunity to launch, but Peya has just got himself out into fourth position in the V-carb, and that, I think, is going to be quite interesting, especially when you consider this driver, Tom97, is maybe the hottest hand at the moment.
A man, like we've mentioned on multiple occasions, did a last to first in Brazil for the fan vote GP. He doesn't want to have to experience that all over again. A man who absolutely gripped and shredded his tires to nothing by the end of it. But can he find any turn of improvement? Yes, he can. And he goes up into P1 with a 1:13.884. And the first driver into the 13s for Q3 specifically. And this now puts the challenge on for other drivers to follow and how they may pursue that, with Meraki in P7 seemingly pushing again, but 4.3 seconds slower. I can only assume that he is definitely not going at the same pace he was before with that face of determination we saw on the screen. But with Tom97 into P1, this begs the question, does he finally get that opportunity into pole position? Well, with 4 minutes 48 on the clock, he at least takes provisional pole, and now it's going to be the fight all the way to the checkered flag to decide how this grid will line out.
Well, there is something very, very telling about that time from Tom97. You look at what he's been able to do, and he's done so well at round 2, round 3, and round 4. I believe he all had the pole positions there. Elray Geary, the King Geary, is now looking to try and ascend back to his throne out there with 4 minutes 15 on the clock. He needs this to be a big lap time because he'll need to be quite quick on his in-lap to go get one more set of tyres available to him. He's 3/10 down, though, here in the second sector, which begs to me, just dive back into the pits. No need to risk anything more than what you've got. Get a fresh set of tyres on and go for it. And in fact, on cue, he'll dive down into the pits, unable to improve. That 13.8 is more seismic than a lot of people think it is. That is at least a quarter of a second, nearly 3/10, and you would say there, JP, that is seismic right now in terms of the shockwave that has left everybody in qualifying at this stage.
Well, Safso 2.5 tenths in the Alpine ahead as he goes into the third and final sector. We'll come back to the point with Elray Geary, but right now entering into turn 13 and getting the exit that he could possibly just try and maximize a little bit more right on the edge of the curve there, and that is maximizing as a definition a 1:14.259, 6.5 tenths. Goes up to P4, and Alpine, the only driver on the circuit, now completing their lap time. But to the point I was going to make with Elray Geary, he answered an interview question that I didn't personally ask, but the question stated, how are you trying to approach this season? What is the goal? What is the plan for Elray Geary, and how do you expect to be attacking this championship? And that was at round 1. And he explained how he wanted to show consistency. He wanted to explain how he wanted to just keep that pace nice and similar throughout every single round and allow himself into podium positions, allow himself into race wins, allow himself into multiple pole positions, and allow himself into the championship lead. He's done exactly that. Currently sits on 4 feature race wins specifically, and that isn't even counting sprint race wins, which I don't believe he has picked one up quite yet, but in each sprint race he has finished, I believe, in the top 5 every single time. And that's coming back from near the back of the field as well, considering that it would be reverse grid. So just considering the pace that he's been able to have, considering the consistency that he said he would have at the start of the season in being able to keep his word ever since that point, can he do it again here in Q3?
Now, Safso here is going to probably have about 30 seconds to get in, get some tyres, and get back out again. This is going to be incredibly dicey as to whether Safjo's going to get another lap out there or whether fourth will be his best. 3 drivers currently in the pit right now, and everyone out trying to set their final lap. Safjo will not be able to improve. He doesn't have enough time. There is Alex Gillen out there, someone who desperately needs a result, and right now with 2 3/4 tenths of a second to find, JP.
Well, Haas is on the back foot. He's in P2. He's not exactly out of position by any means, but a man who would desperately love an opportunity to be back in the limelight in qualifying. It's been a while, and he wants to be back in pole position. Alex Gillen has the pace. He has the opportunity. It's just if he can put it all together for one fantastic lap where he sets the lap alight and he's able to do everything to perfection. Follow the white line, follow the curbs round, rotate to the perfect angle, get the throttle down to the best of your ability and across the timing line. Let's take a lap along here with Alex Gillen in the Haas. Coming down into turn 1, you brake just after the 100-meter board. Then you use the curb, as I mentioned, to rotate through. A little snap on the rear end of the car, but he keeps it all together. Then you go downhill, downshifting to third gear, sticking with it, making sure to apply the throttle as soon as you're off the brake. Then you use the corner of turn 3, a quick snap on the right-hand side, making sure to not waste a single second. Look at the speed he carries through there. A tap on the brake before immediately applying that throttle again, before then going into 8, a revolving increase in height, and then you continue into the chicane of 7 or 6 and 7, and now continuing into 8, and eventually it would be 9, 10 and 11 at the exit of the second sector. You need to be smart with how you drive, technicality, but also top-end speed. Alex Gillen coming to a close here.
Well, he was 3 tenths down in the opening sector. We saw yellows out for Nogueira running into troubles out there. So that's going to be his lap pretty much done and dusted. Can Alex Gillen find a miracle here to improve his time as he will head over to the line? 14.1 is what he's looking for. He gets another 14.1, but that one's slower, so he's not there. That's Tom 97 in trouble and off the side of the road, so he won't improve. M-Sky Z, what do you have over the line? 14 flat. Is going to be there, but he will not be allowed to improve on his time. El Rey Geary, everyone else around you struggled. What does the king find? It's 4,000 to the tune of El Rey Geary in pole position with that one sorted. Absolutely sensational. Meraki, the only driver who can say something about it. He goes to the second row. El Rey Geary in the clutch.
And it's another pole position for the Aston Martin. The British constructor does it again. El Rey Geary does it again, and he does it in absolute fashion as he always does. And he goes to the Hungarian Grand Prix for 70 laps of action for a 4.381 kilometer circuit length in P1, and he's done it again. So the question now lies, with what is normally quite an interesting turn 1, how do you defend against that one? That is the next question to answer. How do you defend? How will you get off the line? Because Hungary has always had some interesting starts, both in real life, both in Creator Series previously, and now the question begs and echoes again. But for the time being, it's pole position by 4 singular milliseconds. That was the difference between Tom 97 and the Aston Martin being on pole position. 0.004.
That is 4 sheets of papers difference there. Wonderful stuff out there from El Rey Geary. Tom 97 will feel a little hard done by that his final lap wasn't able to put together. Alex Gillen in 4th will think that's still a great qualifying by his standards, and so too to both Saubers, which are there in 6th and 7th as they get themselves all ready for what is coming up, which is 70 laps worth of racing. Bright sunshine as these drivers look to set themselves up. But this is what you see on the final lap. JP, this is what happened to Tom as he was trying to get himself through the penultimate corner. The back just stepped out and rotated.
Oh, no. And it does look like he was improving as well. Purple in the second sector. If there was nothing that went wrong on that occasion, including the fact that he was only 4 milliseconds off that could have been the lap that was necessary for him to take pole position. Either way, still an equal opportunity. A lot of people will say that pole position is better than P2. Yes, they are. They're ahead of P2. But what I mean, in a lot of ways, I still like to argue that there's an equal opportunity. All it takes is for pole position to get a bad getaway. Even if they do react well, it takes just a little bit too much wheel spin, getting on throttle just to split too much more than probably what they needed, just getting a little too overzealous, what was necessary for themselves, and all of a sudden, P2 becomes P1. Then considering turn 1 as well, you're on the left-hand side of the straight when you're on pole position, meaning you defend automatically on the outside line. Using that information, it is going to be up to how that may be approached later on, but obviously replay right now, and that is Nogueira, who currently approaches up in towards turn 4 at the top of the hill.
Yep.
Oh, close there, but sticks inside the white line now. Follows as he goes up the hill and right into the barrier. Front wing damage through the hairpin of turn 5 on the exit. And that was all that could be said. Checker flag waving before he could finish off his lap time.
Well, that's where the finer margins are found. One small mistake out there, and your entire qualifying outlook may completely change, and that is what we have. We are moments away from the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix, the 7th round of the 7th season of the EA Creator Series. Jake Sperry and Jamie Perry here giving you all of the action. But one thing is going to be for certain, JP, very quickly. These drivers realize that you are going to have to be lightning on the start, because this first lap might be more crucial than some of the others we'll see this season.
Monaco without the barriers. It's technically challenging. It's close and tight racing. Opportunities come thick and thin, and it is up to you to maximize it on the first lap, because that is the biggest opportunity for you to make the most moves from the lowest positions to where you may be by the end of the first lap. It is important to maximize it as quickly and as best as possible. And right now, for all these drivers, it is imperative to do exactly that. As you mentioned, moments away from the 5 beaming red lights to shine upon the drivers' visors before eventually flicking out for them to focus on one and one thing alone.
Well, they're going to get themselves ready, and I think we need to move on over because lights are out, and we are racing here from the Hungaroring. A wonderful start then by Meraki, who's immediately moved up into second there, and they'll scramble 3 wide into the first corner. El Rey is going to be challenged by Meraki, and Alex Gillen trying to have a search on the inside. He's not quite there, but now Meraki's going to have to defend. El Rey Geary boxes him in towards turn 2, and around the outside will try Alex Gillen, looking for a lane to try and scramble through. Turn 3 normally gets it done. Meraki goes around the outside and will take P2. They will sort themselves out and dive their way through. Hard tyres on there for the start, and a crucial strategy game is going to be in play for all of these drivers. Mediums for Meraki, magical off of the start.
Long going is the El Rey Geary Aston Martin, and it is a fantastic getaway, defending exactly like he needed to. Outside line was what Meraki followed. Alex Gillen followed on close pursuit on the inside line, but none of them could follow through. It is Aston who stays in P1, and now it is the pursuit, the chase down for the championship leader and the man in P1. It is Nogueira down in PA in the Mercedes who goes up in position, and look at the midfield fight at the moment. Kick Sauber making contact with the McLaren of Tiamat Marduk, who now goes up to P9, and McLaren just in close pursuit to the rear diffuser of the Mercedes. Can't seem to close down the gap on the exit of the corner. Couldn't get the throttle down in time, and as we cross the line for the first lap of action to come to a close, multiple position switching, and the Ferrari going to the outside line. McLaren as well locking the fronts, but look at the Ferrari of Infratic in P11, just seemingly going wheel to wheel, two abreast with the kick. Sauber of F2 Scott uses the inside line in the apex, gets the throttle down, move is not yet made, and finally gets the door shut, and Ferrari up in the top 10.
Yeah, that's great work by Infratic to find that move, and look at Yorpa deciding he wants to get in on this action, diving down the inside and taking that move away. So that will put him up now into 11th position, and eyes then on the top 10 are going to be there next. They will have now DRS to play with, and El Rey Geary is going to be the one driver at the front who sees the conquest behind him. Meraki and Alex Gillen and Tom had a great start by the two Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. Peya in 5th, Tom 97 in 6th position, and Meraki now getting a little bit of a wiggle then, going through at 13, but into 14, trying to open up an opportunity, an avenue of attack out there on track. This is where he's going to have to try and find that move, using the better tyres out there, realising Peya is going to be on some soft, but there's the lunge down towards the inside. El Rey Geary gives him the room, but Meraki here needs all of turn 2 to go and fight this back.
It's still 2 abreast between the two drivers. Aston Martin defending the inside line. El Rey Geary is a clean defender, but he will defend if his life counts on it. And right now you can see the Williams needing to back out of it, but approaching into turn 4, looking and searching both on the inside and outside for any opportunity to make a move. Neither way could be done, and this is why it's called Monaco without the barriers. Such little opportunities to make a move. You need to use the DRS whenever it is possible to, and Williams will stay in P2 for the time being, racing close throughout the entirety of the field, and it's clear to see that it is all practically 3 to 5 tenths of a margin, not separating anyone at the moment as Williams continues this chase down from the exit of 11 going into 12.
Well, it's about trying to stay in range here in the opening laps of this one, because they know how important it is. A little alert by Nogueira, trying to get something done down the inside, not necessarily being able to find that pass and that exchange up into 8th position on M Sky Z, but the front straight brings itself back again. Tiamat Marduk now with the fastest lap at this moment in time, close again by Meraki, but no cigar. But now he's trying to get drive off the exit of the corner, goes over to the left-hand side of the circuit. El Rey, you left the door open. He'll try and wander straight through, but at the last second, the latch of El Rey Geary managing to stave off the challenge and front to rear contact. It's Tom 97 and Tiamat Marduk.
Yeah, slight contact to the rear diffuser of the V-carb, and Tiamat Marduk just need to consider how he wants to approach the move upwards. Already out of the exit of turn 4, currently on turn 5, reaching the top of the elevation before considering how he wants to go into the chicane. Has to back out of it, but who two drivers do not want to back out of it? It's Mercedes and the Kick Sauber, and now it's Skyzy up into P8. That is brave maneuvering around into a chicane where there is little to no room for overtaking, and that is exactly what we like to see here in Formula One Creator Series. Mercedes now on the charge. DRS is already active, was active since lap 2, and it is a chase down for every driver who falls out of position from that point onwards, on from the pit straight, down out of the exit of turn 1. There's only 2 DRS points, and you need to use it to the best of your ability. A single detection zone already used up, and will it be now the Mercedes who regains that position upwards? But we go to the front of the field, and it is Williams who goes down the inside, once again leaving room for one another, 2 abreast as Aston Martin defends on the inside line. Flat to the floor, pedal to the metal as they go into turn 2. Who will defend along it? But it's once again fantastic attacking, fantastic defending, and Aston Martin back up into the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Well, El Rey Geary knew exactly how wide his car was. He left exactly 1 car width on the outside of turn 2 and said, Meraki, what do you want? Welcome to Penaltiesville. We're just seeing them for the first time. And Matty D13 has got 3 seconds in the back pocket. And watch out, because Alex Gillen all of a sudden decides, you know what, I'm going to put a bit of pressure on you, Meraki. I'm tired of sitting and waiting you squander chances to make the pass on El Rey Geary. I want to find my way down the inside and gain that extra place. And I think drivers do not want this to be the simple sort of race out there, JP, of waiting for a pit stop to make passes. They want to make moves on track.
No, absolutely. They want to have an opportunity to make up as many positions as possible. Track position will help beneficially in every single situation in terms of strategy because of how tight and harsh it is to make a maneuver. You can see how close it is between the Williams and Aston Martin with DRS active. Is this another opportunity for Meraki? They're going to get close, but not close enough. And once again, it is just seemingly closing in for Alex Gillen because this constant fighting between P1 and 2 is giving P3 of the Haas an opportunity to bring themselves closer up into the fighting distance and potentially make this a three-way battle for the podium positions, but also for the lead of the race.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot here going on right now, and we're getting a real sense that Meraki is not too happy with that consistency value of El Reguiri's braking. He needs to have a little bit more trust in where he brakes in order to play that game, and that's what's making life difficult. Yorpa still searching here behind him, Fratic, and nobody really in a position to make a big move out there. They don't want to lose the group in front. There's a search again by Nogueira, who's getting a little bit desperate to try and find that move. Oh, this is brave. Take the attack out of 12. Go around the outside of 13, Yorpa. Why not? He's got the inside for 14, and that is a very clever pass.
And makes complete sense. He had the downforce there, and that was clear to see on display from qualifying. Used it, and now look at Tom 97 going battle with his teammate Perya moving out of the way, and Tom 97 into P5. El Reguiri down to P2. Meraki got the opening on the outside line. DRS, and finally, there is no defense that El Reguiri could put up any longer, and Aston Martin falls down to P2. We have a consistent new race leader, and it is the Williams of Meraki, as you can now see Yorpa using the downforce and using the technicality of the Hungaroring towards his advantage, up into P9, looking to go forward in another position, approaching towards Skyzy.
Well, that's Nogueira, who's dropped 5 places, so he's had a mistake out there over the course of this lap, so that's why he's fallen down the order. So that will give everyone a little bit of a boost. F2 Scott there in 11th, trying to jump up a little bit more and gain. Meraki now your new leader here on lap 7. El Reguiri second, Alex Gillen now finds himself third. It's 5 effectively at the front, and Peya right now on the soft compound tyres. Is he starting to go through a graining phase, you feel, JP, where now his tyres might just put him out of range of DRS if he's not careful?
Well, considering I can't currently see what tyre he is on, but I can only assume it would be rather mediums or softs, considering the type of degradation he is clearly having. And Meraki currently there, but we're going to go see a replay and having a look at Nogueira. Not for the first time we've seen a replay from him going into the final corner, gets the throttle down, 5th gear, eventually 6th as well. DRS is down, so how does he approach going into turn 1? Close racing with Skyzy, looks to send it down the inside, contact made, and he had to take avoiding action, which brings in the Williams of Yorpa, meaning he lost out in positions due to the squeeze that took place, and it went from bad to worse, and for a moment's notice, who now also picks up front wing damage.
I tell you what, MSkyZ must have got very, very lucky because he went fully around 90 degrees. He may have got a tap from someone else back to right way around because he didn't lose any places in that issue, and it doesn't look like he's lost much time either from what happened. So that might have been Scott who got caught up in a bit of troubles too. So you got to keep your eyes peeled because that was not what was wanted in the early stages of this race. They're going to be in this one for the long haul out there at this moment, and they realise that in a race like this today, they have got to look around at everybody else and realise that you've got to play the strategy game to win here at the Hungaroring. This is a very tough circuit to go out there on paper and expect that you can just battle around with everyone and get everything what you want. Jorpa seeing in front that MSkyZ is going to try and get back at Tiamat Marduk. They're front to rear down the inside, and somehow it is Tiamat Marduk who stays in front. He must have 9 lives and a patron saint giving him all of the protection in the world.
9 lives, but he's 1 life now down, considering the fact that now look at Yorpa. Is he going to make a move up towards the top of the hill at 4? He is on the outside line. That is brave maneuvering, and that is how you get it done here in F1 Creator Series out of the exit of turn 5. My God, Yorpa risking everything on the line and does exactly that as he goes up into the top 8. And have a look at F1 Scott going through into turn 8 and 9, and he is once again battling away. Oh my God, that was nearly lights out for the Mercedes, but keeping it together, 2 abreast out of the exit of turn 11, going down into 12. Bit of smoke from locking of tires, especially on the front end of it, but now defending like a bus in a parking spot. He keeps position, and that is exactly how you get it done.
Well, now it's 5 away at the front here. Tom 97 there. F2 Scott took 3 seconds in that fracas that we saw going forward. And there's the lunge down the inside from Yorpa from a light year back. And it's almost 3 wide off the exit, front and rear contact. And somehow, some way, he's going to save the car. There's the lunge down the inside by M Sky Z. And suddenly we got a free-for-all out there at the Hungaroring. M Sky Z with nowhere to go. Peya's tyres are cooked.
You know, cats may have 9 lives, octopuses have 3 hearts, and they're using the mixture of both to somehow stay alive at every single corner that they go to battle at. It is incredibly close, touching every single time they seem to battle away with one another, leaving barely any room and maximizing any opportunity to stop them from getting back ahead. And it doesn't seem to be working out in any case. Peya somehow doesn't seem to have any type of front wing damage. That V-carb is the survivor, and he's continuing his pace upwards, but right now needing to defend against Skyzy, who has been, let's say, a little aggressive at times.
Yeah, M Sky Z's definitely been trying to put his fingers in all the pies, so to speak. 4 and 20 of them, some would say. But at the moment, you can see what all that damage has done. And that gap, 3.5 seconds between TM Mark and Tom, and Yorpa now up into 6. There goes the lunge by Tom. He's not going to sit by and wait too much longer and look out for the race lead, because there goes El Rey Geary back to the inside on Meraki. Meraki's got a hold around the outside. Alex Gillen in the catbird seat for this side-by-side affair. Inside line is still there for El Rey Geary, and look at them up the hill. Alex Gillen, eyes bigger than the belly, doesn't know where to go, thinks about the inside. This has been the entire first half of the lap, side by side for the race lead. Once more, the Oracle turns again, wide and over the chicane. Has to go El Rey, and suddenly there's still nowhere to go. And Meraki finally gets the defense, but here comes the up and unders.
Welcome to Budapest. Welcome to the Hungaroring. It's Monaco without the walls, and is exactly what we expected. It is Alex Gillen looking for every and any opportunity outside line of the Aston Martin. He had to back out of it again. It is defense from both of these. They're practically being a barricade for one another. This opens the opportunity for the V-carb of Tom 97, who may want to go back-to-back from Brazil, but he needs to get past one driver, and one driver alone, to start that campaign upwards, and that is Alex Gillen. He has the DRS, he has the slipstream in tow, outside line, going into turn 1, and look at Alex Gillen running a little bit wide. Contact also to the Williams V-carb as well, picking up front-end damage. And now as they go into turn 2, it just doesn't seem to ever want to settle down. And Hungary really starting to show you what racing can be like on a Formula 1 day for Creator Series.
They're racing like it's the last lap of the race. It's only lap 12, and nobody's told them, it seems, as they crest up. GB68, who, remember, was out in Q2, is now thinking about 9th position and any points that he can possibly try and salvage here in this race. Absolutely wonderful stuff at the front of the field. The middle of the pack still remaining quite tense out there at this moment in time. But you really got a sense over the course of that battle, JP, that El Rey Geary, Meraki, Alex Gillen, Tom 97, they all 4 of them came to play. The one driver to keep an eye out on is Tom in 5th. He's got a big game to play out there, and I think he's waiting a little bit long. And Infratic, hoping that he is going to undercut a lot of drivers. He's already dived into the pits, and he's looking for a big play out there in terms of this race.
I think more than anything, Jake, it's Brazil all over again. We have a top 5 battle for not only the lead of the race, but all positions that surround him. A few more drivers seemingly coming into the pit lane, but that could have been just a mistake on Tia McMardik's point.
No,
look at him, he's down to P17. No, he is into the pit lane. And now look at the Haas, who also continuing to battle away, but it is McLaren coming in now, continuing this fight, but we can't seem to look at two things at once because the battling between one another continues to intensify. Haas fighting away with the Williams and Meraki, who gets up into P2, and Tom97 still waiting patiently for an opportunity to potentially slip by, and it really does show you they're practically all even on pace, giving no opportunities to one another, and all fighting at practically the same level, just showing you what they can do, and not all of them are on the same tire. They'll all box at different times. Their strategy being considered is practically a two-stop all the way to the end here. You can see mediums and hards throughout the field. One of them will box onto the hards, one of them will box onto the mediums and reverse it back around to the end of this race. Gaps are still a little bit out. First point we may see it is anywhere between lap 17 to maybe that lap 24 margin. So we're a little bit still away from that, but racing still closer than ever before.
Well, Alex Gillen's got to make this move now because Elray will be gone. It was 9/10 of a second, and there goes the up and under once more. As close as you want. Front to rear tyre contact, and Meraki backs out of it. No surprises there. Alex Gillen with the second bout of DRS to effectively put an exclamation mark on that move. Needed to clear Meraki and needs to now start thinking about what's going on in front. Emphatic right now with the fastest lap check mark next to his name. Will be happy about that. But Alex Gillen right now finding himself in second, and maybe Meraki's mediums are starting to look a bit second-hand at this moment in time. It was spicy. He does need to recharge the energy recovery system, and JP talks to me about how big the harvesting is in these cars.
Well, not only that, consider the battery that they need to try and save at points and use at other points. By you harvesting and you trying to save that battery, it allows you that opportunity to then use it all, dump it at one point and another, compared to another driver that needs to harvest. It's practically like doing an on and off switch. One lap you're on, the other you're off, and there's going to be a constant back and forth with this harvesting and how you use the ERS, because if you use it at the right time and you save at the right time, you can get onto the pit straight and dump it all to use it towards your advantage, like V-Car will do, and Tom97 on the inside line shuts the DRS. He will get it once again out of the exit of turn one, and have a look at that with a fantastic style that cannot be matched. Tom97 up into the top three. And another thing that hasn't been considered as well, and why Tyre Deck is so fast to match with the technicality of Hungary, we're on the softest compounds in the Pirelli range. The C3s, C4s, and C5s. Those C3s wouldn't be absolutely hung on like the life depended upon it. Those hards will be used for longer periods of time, and right now it seems to be the tyre to go for.
Look at Yorpa. He has so silently worked his way onto this group. 3.5 seconds he's been able to close down. He's passed Tom. He's looking now at Meraki. And I think Yorpa's got a car here on these hard tyres that looks absolutely sensational on long run pace. Quartz now will take 3 seconds worth of time penalty to the back pocket. But Yorpa's making a claim here that he wants everything he's got. And it's his teammate who you can see is just battling the car at the moment, and this one should be elementary, my dear Watson. Tom97, fastest lap of the race on his 16-lap old hard tyres, but there goes Yorpa without too much of a fight there with teammate Meraki.
Well, with that move sent down, it's not the only one. However, it's now unstopped Rob up to P7 against M. Skyzy, and it's been a very aggressive but an incredible distance that Skyzy has gone to defend and attack at different points. He stayed around the same position as drivers come and go, and then he continues to try and fight back. But other drivers that continue to fight all the way since the start of those 5 red lights flickering away into the distance. These drivers will distance themselves. Never, it seems to be the case. 2.5 tenths separating P1 to P2. Alex Gillen simply waiting for the opportunity for it to open up. All it takes is one good exit, and on the hard compound tires, he will be loving life with the grip and traction he would be feeling. And though his tires are degrading at a much slower rate, and he'll be enjoying those tire temps as they stay in the window a little bit longer than whatever window El Reguiri is currently struggling with.
Well, El Geary right now is going to be looking behind. He's been so comfortable at the front of a number of races this season. He's got 2 wins to his name. He's got 2 seconds to his name as well. But the one thing that he realises is Alex Gillen is looking for his 2nd race win of the season. That is going to be a move down the inside. And ultimately, what's going to be the response back? DRS for Alex Gillen, and El Geary has to sit in line and try and keep himself in play. That's going to be rather crucial. We did just see a yellow flag for Matty 13 in the middle sector. We're all good though, we're still running. Look a little bit further down. That's Emphatic. Wasn't able to get as much of a jump maybe as he was hoping for, but he goes down the inside and makes sure that Bamford doesn't really have much more that he can do except stare at 18th place.
Tom in P6 looking to try and bring himself a little bit closer towards Meraki in P5 in the Williams, but it seems to be similar gaps throughout the entirety of the top 10 at the moment. No one wants to separate themselves for a second, and a good 3-way battle at the moment from Safso, Noguera, and GB. 6 in, a few more drivers who seem to be near towards this battle at the moment. But this is where the question and a bit more of the statement starts to lie. Strategy needs to be implemented soon. This is what I mentioned. Anywhere between roughly lap 17 all the way to around lap 25 to lap 26 is where we're going to start to see different people coming into the pit lane, especially if you are on those medium compound tires. They're going to be calling for you any time now, and that is where we're going to start to see a bit more of an undercut coming into play. How I would see it, maybe the overcut would be working a little better. Tom up into P5.
Yep, so Tom now past Meraki for position. Couldn't wait any longer. Has lost 3 seconds to Yorpa, but there in the pits is Gwot. So it's going to get off those medium tyres. Tiamat Marduk setting the fastest lap then of the races. He gives chase on his undercut strategy, and we'll see how well that works. Emphatic moves by Hoodie Pete, gets the move done and jumps up another one. So Hoodie Pete falls back to 16th position, and we're seeing these moves starting to find themselves through. Top 4 split by 0.6 of a second apiece. There's Shafsho looking for an opportunity here. This is on the Gera. This would be for the top 10.
Absolutely, and a good fight currently between what looks to be medium compound runners against hard compound runners, and it seems to be all actually more of a medium lockout between these drivers, using whatever is left in those tires to try and use as traction and grip, and right now fighting desperately, crawling on that tarmac and trying to grip for dear life. And you can see as they use 2 hands on the steering wheel, currently kicking it right, going into turn 12, eventually 13 at the hairpin. It is a constant chase for position, but another one as well is Tom 97, who now goes up to P2, and only 7.5 tenths of Alex Gillen, who took the lead of the race. El Geary goes from bad to worse on these medium compound tires. Eventually, he needs to pull the trigger to come into the pit lane. Aston Martin is losing time and losing it quickly.
Those are hard. So El Geary, I just think's not got the same amount of life out of everybody else. Those are hard compound tires.
Wait, what?
So that's going to say all that you need to know about these drivers, how much you're trying to go through. Now, there's issues here in Sector 3, because that's Gwot who's gone around, and the front wing looks a little bit second-hand, having a spin out to the final corner. Gwot has just glocked himself.
Oh, God. I'm sorry, how do I mess up hards with mediums? They look so yellow, but they were just not... Oh, dear. Either way, El Geary clearly maybe just a bit more aggressive, not only with how he may be approaching on that car, but maybe as a setup as well. Maybe kicking on the rear a little bit more, relying on the car to grip up on the exit of the corner, and could cause himself those issues that we are seeing. He's on the hard compound tires, not on the mediums, and that is something that now becomes a big talking point due to it. Replay.
Yeah, this is what happened to Gwotz then, and I think we're going to see just how easy it is to spin the car, even in dry conditions, following the racing line, trying to get early. He grabs the AstroTurf, and at that point, you are a passenger that moment in time, and Gwotz just has to stare around and look, what do I have to do? He also had to be a little bit careful there about that rejoin, because that was a little bit dangerous from where he was.
Well, I told people you need to be careful about those curbs. I said, when you revolve around that apex, avoid that grey in color curb because it will snatch, it will grip onto you, grab your tire, and shake you around like a rag doll, and you will lose complete and utter control of the car. And on that occasion, it happened exactly like I explained it. As you can see, radio message as well from Alex Gillen, and 10 minutes apparently until rain may fall here at the Hungaroring. The track still looks, predominantly dry, and right now it seems as well that the cloud cover isn't exactly high either. We'll have to wait and see if an overcast starts to settle in, and you can see some clouds in the background, so we'll have to wait and see if they move in a little closer.
Well, for those who have made their stops, they're looking around at everybody trying to see what you've got as Nogueira picks up 3 seconds with a warning. Safsho find himself there, and we got drivers diving in now, and that will be Meraki, who's in for his stop then. So Meraki will make his pit stop. He has to get off those mediums, and that, I think, might be a call. If you've got the understanding that there's rain in 10 minutes, surely you've got to bolt on a set of softs here, Jamie, and just attack.
Well, if he's confident with it, then I don't see why not. But maybe Alex Gillen still considering track position and maybe in his own mind thinking to himself, we'll let this play out, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll decide a decision later on. Maybe not the correct way of going with it, but if he's not confident about it and he's more predicting it, then it could mean something different to it. Red Bull down to P14 with Shafso on the outside lane, making a very smooth and swift maneuver into P13. So things are definitely starting to slow down a touch. Cars are still right next to one another, and they will be starting to climb back through the field for any driver that does come into the pit lane on a new set of tires. But the big question, Elray Guri, he seems to be struggling on his tires, and he's on a hard set of compound tires as well. They're not the mediums that we're seeing people struggle on, but he seems to be struggling like he is on a yellow set. Yellow flag in the second sector, currently removed, seems to be all good on circuit. But yeah, really interesting how that Aston Martin need to play it out, and may struggle later into the race as well, as battling in the rear midfield continuing to take place with the Mercedes of Nogueira.
Well, speaking of which, Yorpa is now up into third. Elray Giri has dropped now back into fourth position, as there goes the move. There as Yorpa tries to rush away as quickly as possible. Elray has just been a little too aggro on the tyres in this first stint, and that's allowed Tom97, your leader now, Alex Gillen second, and Yorpa here in third to try and break away and get exactly what they want out of this one. Here's the replay of what happened to Nogueira, who went to dive down into the pits here, and we'll see what happened as he went through. Now, is he going to get caught on the gun speeding as he now hits the brakes? Oh, that is as close as you like, but you're a little bit over, my friend, and 10 seconds it must be.
There must be like a replay record that Nogueira is picking up here. This has to be his third or fourth now. You got to feel bad for the guy. I mean, he is really trying to have just an overall good race, keep consistency, but it keeps going bad to worse for Nogueira, who now picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, plus a 3-second time penalty due to track limits.
It happens, and 13 seconds, 10 of which he will have to serve at his next pit stop. So it's not all doom and gloom. He can serve 10 of that at his next stop, which might just be if intermediate tyres are in play. In is Elray Giri. Out will come Elray Giri on his 22 laps there on the hard tyres. Here is Safsho looking for a move. All right, now we'll go to the outside of GB68, trying to get that sorted, but he will now find himself through. Bamford will also pick up 10 for his troubles.
This puts it in a really interesting scenario for the drivers who are on the hard compound tires. Normally, you're able to go to a distance that's almost 32 laps if you really conserve and look after the tires. Obviously, the gaps aren't exactly light, to say the least. They are really close to one another at all times. But the point being, for someone like Elray Giri, who is fighting right at the top of the championship, for him now to be in P6 on a new set of tires already, he's going to have the undercut. But by the time those drivers get their tires up to temperature and they're making their way through the field, it's going to be Elray Giri who's on the back foot.
Well, speaking of which, Tiamat Marduk is 3 seconds down the road from Elray Giri. That's an undercut. Tiamat Marduk has found his way up and got exactly what he wants. Tom97 and Alex Gillen. If you're Alex Gillen right now, you are just staying on that tyre as long as you can. But the issue they're going to run into with these tyres being super soft in terms of their layout of C3, C4, C5 is how much do you want to risk getting to 60% on the tyres and having one of those tyres pop before something happens. There's the look down the inside. Meraki on a second set of medium tyres gets by Infratic. I think Meraki is looking at a very aggro strategy if there is no rain to speak of.
Well, Williams up into position of P8 and needing to try and pull away from the Ferrari of Infratic. And like we said, everything just starting to stretch out more and more as time goes on. Alex Gillen still only 5/10 off Tom 97 and currently on board with Dark Viper GT in the Ferrari P15 and 3.5 off Nogueira in P14 in the Mercedes. Obviously 13 seconds worth of penalties and hasn't had the best of luck. Hopefully can try and fix it on his second time round coming into the pit lane. But right now it is Ferrari applying the pressure to the Mercedes and looking for an opportunity as they go into turn 6, 7, eventually 8, followed closely by 9 and through the incredibly technically challenging part of Hungary before entering down out of the exit of turn 11 and going downhill into the start of the third and final sector on a circuit that is 4.381 kilometers in distance. And you can see how close it can get with Elray Guri now sitting down at 117 and quickly beaten out for fastest lap by Meraki with a 117.296 and Kick Sauber now going wheel to wheel with Skyzy up into P9.
Yeah, lovely pass there. Infratic realising that there is a long game to be played and not necessarily wanting to sully some hands out there. So the pass being done and getting that one sorted without too much care on it. With Elray Giri now starting to charge in 6th position, there are changes. There's yellow flags out as Tom's off the road. Tom's off the road in that position. Look at him crawling to try and get back out on circuit. Unforced error.
And that has gone horrifically wrong. All for the V-Carb. That is not what he needed in any scenario. Firstly, it's a loss of position. He's down to P3, 7.4 seconds from where he was previously. And it now means that V-Carb put himself just slightly more on the back foot than what we saw previously. He's not exactly out of position, but it just means when it comes to the strategic side, it will affect how far back he will now be coming in and out of the pit lane. V-Carb will be devastated with that one, and including the fact that there will now be an increase in degradation on his tyres. Oh dear.
Well, Tom 97, you have to cast your mind back to Spain, where he threw the car out of the race lead under a safety car by putting it in the barriers. That's going to be one of his causes for concern out there. We also have another car off the road. It's going to be the other one of the Hasses. That's Matty 13, who has found himself off the road and is going to be able to get back out there and going forward. So that there is a tough day for Matty D13, who can't find any consistency out there on his tyres as things currently stand, Jamie.
Yeah, no, clearly struggling along here. Matty D13 down to P20, 24.6 seconds down the road now. And Haas, another driver, as we've said before, going bad to worse as it continues to stack up, especially near the rear field for penalties as well. And as we mentioned before, Hungary so tight and so competitive with one another. It is so easy to make so many mistakes and cause yourself to pick up an easy time penalty due to track limits. Have a look at Elray Giri, though, and using these new set of tyres. We all knew that Tiamat Mardik was eventually going to make the move by, but it was how the new, fresher set of tyres would grip onto the tarmac and using it to the best of his ability. Aston Martin, inside line, late on the brake, shuts the DRS, and up into P5. Will use the DRS once again, and Aston Martin will use it to pull away as he now can use those tyres effectively in his favour.
That's more psychological than anything else. That is P1 in the championship, passing P2 in the championship for position. And you know that Tiamat Mardik's on a slightly different game on strategy, so he won't mind too much that Elray Giri's gone through. He'll try and latch onto him and stay as close as possible as we watch Peya here in 11th, trying to find a way up inside the top 10 with Infratic. They're just in front, one of the earliest takers into the pits. So Infratic will surely be one of the drivers due into the pits in the not too distant future. We're about 10 minutes away. I have not seen that sky change a bit. So whatever Alex Gillen was dealing with right now, I don't see any rain.
Yeah, I would use my live telemetry. Unfortunately, I can't on this occasion. but I would be able to give you an actual idea on what the weather would be. However, it does seem like the clouds are moving in. It's just not at the amount of time that maybe Alex Gillen was stating. Elray Guri now getting more quicker on the set of mediums at 117, 212, and working better in his favor lap by lap. Eventually, they will start to work less in contention for himself as Tom sending it down the inside at turn 1. DRS will be in the favor of the Alpine as well, so that's an easy move up into P7.
Oh, hello. Round the outside, we'll try pair you now. And this brings Safsho and GB68 into play. This one could end in tears, as now here goes the lunge down the inside, tyre-to-tyre overlap. And look at this, you little artful dodger, trying to get away to pick a pocket. Why not, Safsho? Find that one on Infratic, and down the inside, GB68, oh, he found a malfunction at the junction and just about got himself out of dodge.
Trying to approach into turn 5 and bring himself just a little bit closer. Can't seem to bring himself back in, but Ferrari making a mistake, and that is exactly what I'm talking about. You try and use all of the chicane, including that bump, you will unset the car and see yourself on the disadvantage. On that time round, Ferrari did exactly that, and Maranello screams into the background. That's Matty D13, the first retiree in the pit lane. Unfortunate ending for the Haas driver, couldn't seem to keep it all together, and that is race ending for Matty D13 as we continue on with the battle here near the rear end of the field. But look at this, Elray Guri up to P4. He got the new set of tyres and he's using it to perfection, but we focus with the big DRS train that is fighting away like there is no tomorrow, like there is no ending to this, and they will fight till there is no ending at all. And it is Ferrari who now goes up to P13 against his teammate, and that is not what they need in terms of team fighting, as he sends them all around the outside line.
Chaos ensuing with the retired Matty D13 car coming back out onto circuit there, and everybody having a scramble about to try and find a way forward. That cloud cover's definitely now starting to move, so maybe it wasn't as quick as what Alex Gillen was thinking, but I think that rain might be due on the horizon. Massively scary moment in and around that top 10. Infratic just ahead of Dark Viper, but everybody had to scramble at 6s and 7s.
Right now, you can see the two Ferraris still sticking neck and neck with one another, and this is not what they need. We mentioned how before Maranello screaming at the top of their lungs, they would be yelling at their drivers through the radios as we take a replay here on board. See what may have happened to Tom 97, just seemingly losing the rear end a little bit and completely losing it. And this is what lost his time in the beginning. Just starting to try and get it in the right direction, actually scraping along the barrier, eventually back onto the tarmac, but now down in a significant amount of time compared to what it was before, as these two Ferraris continue to try and go at each other's throats.
Well, that was all about losing it at the phase of acceleration, and Peya almost illustrating the point of the V-Carb's troubles there. They've got so much torque out there, Jamie, that goes through the rear wheels. The moment that you're trying to put a little bit too much more, a little bit too early, this car is a demon. It will snap on a dime.
No, absolutely. There is over 12,000 plus RPM in these V6 hybrid twin turbocharged cars, and it just gives you an idea on how much torque is produced to the rear axle. Where the differential sits, it's actually a transaxle system due to the rear axle being connected to the transmission as well. And you can see currently Tiamat Marduk up into P6. His tyres will be wearing away a little quicker than what Elray Guri would be feeling. However, his tyres will be feeling a lot better than whatever Unstopped Rob's is. DRS inside line, goes to send down the move, keeps it on the apex of the corner, using a little bit of the curb for the rotation, now getting the throttle down and move stuck in stone to the best of his ability.
Well, Unstopped Rob there looked pretty stoppable in terms of that move. Tiamat Marduk making it look easy as he now finds a way into the top 5 with that pass. With Tom behind now, thinking about P7, which would be quite good. Let's take a little look. This is Infratic and what he had to navigate through with everybody right there. So there went through 1, there went through two, and then as they get on the brakes down onto the inside, Nogueira's got to get out of the way there of Matty D13's ghosted car coming back out, and then Nogueira, because it's yellow flags for the car retiring from the race, had to get the place back.
And he'll be confused about why he had to, but either way, yellow flag being deployed, and is the reason that fighting now continues between those two. But Ferrari, they really need to separate themselves a little bit. They've been really at the throat of one another. It's now 1.8 separating, so they have a bit of a margin now starting to be created. So maybe Ferrari have been in their ears a little bit more, but whatever the case may be, they are not going to be happy with one another as Tom goes up to P6 in the Alpine, making a swift and easy maneuver against the Mercedes of Unstopped Rob, who cannot defend in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you got to look around at Tom. He needed to make that pass. He's managed to make that pass. Keep an eye out on third and fourth as we focus on GB6T8, because while one Aston Martin is stuck behind a V-carb, there is a second Aston Martin that's approaching another V-carb car. Tom 97 right now is in range, and it's just about tantalising at 1 second. And watch out, because I think we're seeing the first spots of Ray. Here goes the dive down the inside. There's a bit of contact between the two, and that's a bit cheeky there by Peya, because he's just gone and slipped his way back on through to gain that position. He'll dive again, look for the inside, and look at it. It starts to fall down here at Hungary.
The heavens have opened up here at Budapest, and it really starts to put a question on every single one of these drivers' minds. How will they approach strategy now? It is a complete switch. The track goes from dry to wet. Intermediates is the choice, and look at the inside line Mercedes is taking. V-carb, Nina back out of it. If we get a better look at the tires, we can also see how everyone's strategy has unfolded a little bit, and who may be coming into the pit lane to consider boxing for rain. Grip already reducing, says Alex Gillen. We already have two drivers coming into the pits, and most likely, potentially at least, switching over to those intermediates. It is the choice that I believe everyone would be going for. You can already see Mercedes is in. V-carb to follow in close pursuit. Penalties completely dodging them, so it is going to be a quick tire switch over, and you can see the tread, the groove on those intermediates. The green and color intermediates have made it onto the circuit, and rain has poured to a point where slicks are no longer the better option to be on.
Yeah, I need to see Jorpa's tyres here, because Jorpa was the one driver who came in through all of that, and what an inspired call this is by the Williams driver. He was the first of the leaders to really indicate, what do I want? He went onto the intermediate tyres at a moment's notice. In comes your race leader, Alex Gillen. Here is Jorpa trying to get one lap's undercut here in these wet, dour conditions to try and jump through and gain. That's M-Sky Z who's there just in front, and we'll see Tom 97, El Ray Geary's probably going to follow into the pits. Everybody else who was in is in. Now watch out for Jorpa and where he's going to funnel out by comparison. Alex Gillen is just about exiting the pits right now, but it is going to be cut and dry for Jorpa. He has made Tom 97 look like crazy at this point. He's got a massive jump on him.
Yep, Jorpa now up in a P2, and is this the race leader that we completely ignored? A man who completely dipped into the shadows, disappeared off the radar of the commentators and of the broadcast crew, has come back in a big flip on the front end of the car there, regains control, picks up most likely another track limits penalty, needs to keep it clean to avoid a 3-second time penalty. That would almost guarantee him taking himself out of contention. Either way, Williams into P2, 3.2 off. If Alex Gillen, who's only just coming into the pits, 3.1 off, he needs to still get those tires up to 10th, and the track isn't completely damp, but we are losing traction, and eventually those inters will be in the right window, and we can only assume Jorpa will be able to reap the benefits of getting on those tires early.
Well, we're almost about here at the halfway stage of this race. Alex Gillen is your leader. Jorpa now up into second. DRS officially disabled as Tom 97 is third and El Ray Geary's fourth. Those two together. Tim Malik finds himself fifth. It's Tom in sixth. Unstopped Rob 7th, Meraki down in 8th, M-Skyz 9th, and Safsho in 10th. We're on board with Meraki here in 8th place, looking to gain one more up into 7th, and basically cut this race exactly into 2 right now, Jamie, in terms of strategy. The first half of the race was a dry race. This is now a wet race.
No, absolutely. It came down to it being a very simple 2-stop in terms of the slick compound tires, but the heavens opened up here in Budapest, and it opened a complete new variety of options for strategy. Obviously, intermediates was the way to go. When you boxed was the next question, and now it's how you rather reap the benefits or suffer the consequences of when you came into the pit lane, and how you can use the grip and traction on the grooved intermediate tires towards your advantage, as now you can see Elray Guri closing in with a rapid amount of pace towards Tom 97 in the V-Carb. It's Aston trying to get back up into the top 3 and back up into the podium positions.
Remember, Elray Guri here is your championship leader. He's got 16 points over Tiamat Marduk. He has got himself a full 35 over this man. Think we've covered this over on your part. He's nailed it. Absolutely right, Alex Gillen's nailed this. He's done everything that he's needed to do. An extra lap and he would have been in trouble, but that was a very nice call by Alex Gillen to make sure he holds himself instead. But Alex Gillen right now is thinking about how many points he can claw back. Remember, he's got the intermediate fastest lap from qualifying, so it's an extra point. Right now, he'll be sat on 26 points, and if you look down the order, it's 16 if Elray Guri stays in 4th position. That is a huge 12-point swing. Oh, sorry, 16 there for 4th. So actually, it'll be a 10-point swing, and those 10 points will put him right back in the wheelhouse once again of one race victory.
Another driver that we are also forgetting, P4 of Nogueira. Now, we can currently see him down in P15, and he's obviously only got that 3-second time penalty, serving the 10 seconds that was originally there, but it was originally bad to worse. And considering where Nogueira was, even though in terms of points he won't be scoring anything, he won't be losing out in position, GB68 will be gaining significantly, now going to 73, and Alex Gillen can use that to try and pull away from what was starting to be quite a close distance between P3 to P4 in the championship.
Well, those live standings indicate how they walked into tonight, not necessarily where they are right now. So keep that in mind as they go forward. That's how the state of play was when they walked into this race right now. 36 laps in, and GB68 on the cusp of a top 10, seeing Safsho at 1 second away out there at this point. Now, the good news for these drivers in terms of it raining around this circuit and talking about higher downforce and a wet weather setup, it isn't necessarily too dissimilar out there in terms of the way they bring it together, Jamie, just because this track is naturally a high downforce circuit.
Yeah, true. You need to use the downforce that you have set up for your car towards your advantage. Any person who considered that there may be rain this evening, even I checked the weather forecast earlier on today before we even started getting the sessions underway. It did look like there was a 70% chance of rain, but it was going into the evening. Was it going to be after the race? Clearly, here for the Hungaroring, they had different intentions in mind, and it has started to pour and rain, and any driver that did consider this and put on a setup that would work in the favor of having more downforce and allowing yourself to stick to the ground a little further, even with wetter conditions, because you'd be slipping and sliding around, even with the groove tires, they only help so much, then they would be reaping the benefits, as I have said before.
Dark Viper here in 13th position. I set firmly forward on Peya in 12th. You can definitely sense that this track is getting a little bit more soggy out there at this point, and there is the scramble that goes through. Now, we've got a yellow flag out there. That's Infratic, who's just spun the car. So Infratic able to keep it going. We stay green running here around this Hungaroring circuit, but Infratic will not be best pleased there in the Ferrari that he's just found that spin.
No, absolutely. And obviously something else to pick up on. 2 Red Bull reserves, P18 and P19, stayed there since the start of this race, has not moved. And it's been an unfortunate race for Red Bull, who also don't currently find themselves too high in the championship. Dead last in P10 with 17 points to their name. They need a good result, and they haven't been able to get it. However, moving away from that, going to P11 to P10, Aston Martin of GB68 looking for the inside line, with DRS slowly but surely being taken out of use, and more about momentum. And as the point I made before this race got underway, it's about momentum with stuff like rain. That's how you make the maneuvers. And you can see here replay being shown for the Ferrari, and see currently as he continues in these wet conditions, this is how he probably lost out on the car, running a little bit wide out of the exit of turn 4, getting to turn 5, and you can see just applying the throttle way too early, almost a bit overzealous there, just immediately slamming it down in conditions that could not take it, didn't have the downforce, lost the rear end, and that is how he picked up some front wing damage to come along with it also.
Well, it's not just the downforce that he'll be struggling with, it's tyre temperature. The moment you have a spin, these tyres cool in these conditions, and it takes forever to get that tyre temperature back up. There is Dark Viper, absolutely shadowing, trying to find his way forward, trying to gain an extra position in the rain, hoping that there is a way forward up into 12th position. And you are looking at trying to keep tyre temperature, because tyre temperature gives you as much as you want. Now, there on the bottom of your screen, that's how they're going to be scoring points here today. And that difference between Alex Gillen and El Rey Geary being big is 10 points, if you consider the bonus point that's there. 2-point difference for Tiamat Marduk. It would open the gap up to 18 points in the championship should things finish like this. Here comes Dark Viper, no DRS needed down the inside, and that is a wonderful overtake being there, but watch out for the cutback.
Yeah, reserve of Dark Viper GT that we've seen in F2 and F1 has consistently been competitive wherever he goes racing. And for the prancing horses, he prances along up into P12. It looked like there was going to be a bit of a pushback for the V-Carb, but move could not be made. It was all about momentum in these intermediate conditions, and it meant that the Ferrari of Dark Viper GT kept position, and up into P12 goes the team from Maranello over in Italy.
Yeah, a lovely, comfortable overtake, and Peya now is going to have to work hard to try and stay with, but already you can see that gap up at 9/10 of a second. There's not much that you can do. Dark Viper has got a car that works in these conditions, and Peya, just simply put, doesn't out there at this point. Another grab of oversteer as he goes through. Now, keep an eye on Tom in 6th position in the Alpine, because he's only there at 1 second behind Tiamat Marduk, and that seems very stable at this moment in time. Tom is quietly running his race right now. He's 7th in the championship. He's got 1 podium to his name. He's got 1 non-finish, 1 non-start, and basically, looking at his season, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 6th. He's just been uber consistent in and around the top 10.
Well, Mr. Consistency, as a Hoodie Pete with a radio message, engage option 13, full traction control, being used in these intermediate conditions, clearly struggling. And this is actually a point I was going to make right at this point. There are drivers who will exceed in wetter conditions, and there will be drivers who will completely flunk when it comes to rain falling onto tarmac. And it comes down to a few things. It comes down to the torque that is carried through on these Formula 1 cars. Yellow flag for what I can only assume is Tiamat Marduk making a slight mistake, or actually the teammate to that, GWAT in P17, with Tiamat Marduk not too far away from potentially going into a bit of a battle here with Tom, the Frenchman, continuing to close down the gap more and more as time goes on. But it's got to do with the torque of the cars. It's got to do with the rain on circuit and how slippery it may be. And it's also got to do more, number one thing, car control. How drivers can control their car in these conditions, especially when it comes to applying the throttle and making sure not to get overzealous when pumping down that loud pedal, and how to just be oodling onto it to the best of your ability. And so if you can manage that, if you can do that without needing traction control and do it to the best of your ability, you will find better acceleration, better traction, better grip, better overall car control, and you will find significantly more pace than a driver who will struggle.
You know, that might have actually been Bamford there, who was lap traffic, having a bit of a moment in front of those drivers near the front. That might be what we were seeing out there, and I think that might have been quite a telling statement of how difficult it is, especially when you consider if you're a reserve driver here, Jamie. You jump into this series with the likes of Tiamat Marduk, who is a massive personality, who no matter where you're racing, Alex Gillen, El Rey, your championship leader, all these drivers that you look at in the Creator Series and go, they are huge drivers by personality. It is a very daunting series to effectively try and find your water wings.
No, absolutely. If you can find that confidence, though, if you can move away the fact that that's Tiamat Marduk, if you can move away the fact that there are big personalities up and down throughout the field like Alex Gillen or El Rey Guri or Tom or Unstop Rob, then it can go towards your advantage. Yellow flag, that is the McLaren and the teammate to Tiamat Marduk, G Watts. And unfortunately, that is all she wrote, and that is going to be P19 by the time Bamford comes across. Oh, dearie me.
Well, he's gone and retired the car, and he'll probably pull it off just after turn 1. So that's going to be the shame for Gwatz there. He was trying to pull it in the pits to retire the machinery outright, but ultimately that will do that for him in this race. But here, lap 41 out of 70, just the 2 retirements here in this race, but everybody still looking to try and find conditions that work for them. It is looking rather wet, and I wonder whether there is a world out there where full wets might have to be considered. It's okay for the intermediate tyres at the moment, but there will be questions on whether that intermediate in itself, in its own right, is going to be able to last this half of the race over, because it will have a lot of wear to it, and I wonder whether they're going to need maybe 10 laps to go in this race, another set of intermediate tyres getting put on the car.
Well, if you can keep your intermediates in around the temperature range of 55 to 75 degrees and at the perfect spot of around 65 degrees, then you can find yourself maximizing the amount of traction you can get in terms of grip. When it comes to the wets, you need colder and more slippery conditions, as you mentioned. Right now, it doesn't seem like we're seeing big puddles forming on the tarmac, which could cause aquaplaning. It still seems to be just heavy intermediate conditions. It is worsening, and it is getting definitely closer towards that wet condition period. But also, if you keep it in the right tire temp window for the intermediates, you can still carry on inters even in wet conditions.
Well, you're really seeing here how important it is to follow the tyre tracks in front there as we focus on board with Tom, staring down the barrel at Tiamat Marduk. Let's take a little look then at this as they go forward. Tom up the hill is now going to be thinking about, well, what more can I do here in this race? What more can I find? And actually, we've got a car in the pits, and it's Peya who's going to make a stop. And I think that's rather telling here. Peya going out there. I want to see what he goes on to, actually, whether it's intermediates or wet, as he will look to try and get himself out. That's full wet.
Oh, so clearly someone feeling as if the wet conditions is gotten too worse and needing to no longer go for groove tires, but full all-weather tread on those Pirelli-made wet condition tires. And that is going to be Tom maybe considering that, Tiamat Marduk considering that. Every other driver will use this as a test subject to see how those wets are competing. Also considering, even if it is harder to do in these conditions, in terms of keeping it in the tire window, they're degrading. They've been on them for plenty of laps now. They will be continuing to fall apart, and though those tires are in the wet conditions, they're grooved. Eventually, they will smooth out like they're a slick compound tire. So eventually, there needs to be a consideration on when they will box once again.
There certainly is that consideration, and just how tough it is to be out there on an intermediate tyre. And there is so much focus around everybody that they're wondering whether this is going to be an absolute deluge out there at this point. So now you start trying to get this sorted. You're now really eyeing up, what is this going on next? What is going to be the next port of call that they find out there, JP? Because those out there on the uber wet tyres are going to need to try and show that they're a little bit quicker. that is going to be their only quantum of solace and their reference points out there, because we haven't really seen anybody else dive in.
No, absolutely. It really is, like I said, a test subject. They need to see how this driver does when it comes to the wet compound tires. They need to see how that traction feels, how much grip they are getting, how much friction they are able to produce, even with Rain continuing to fall onto the tarmac, and see how that may work in their favor. Because if those heavy wet tires are working and they are producing more traction and they are more competitive and have more pace than the intermediates, then it starts to be put into consideration. If not, those inters will continue to be used, and maybe the driver on the wet would need to come off it.
Well, here's something quite telling right now. Yorpa cannot keep the same pace as Alex Gillen. It was 3 seconds when he came out of the pits. That gap is now at 7.7, and Tom 97 is the driver who is closing in on Yorpa for second position overall. We're focusing on Safsho here, looking for that top 10 with GB68. He's not going to be close enough going forward, but eyes must be put forward to second and third positions, because Tom 97, of course, after that spin, is certainly hoping for a way to claw this one right back through.
No, absolutely. V-Carb has started clawing himself much closer towards P2, and P2, as you mentioned, falling away a little bit to Alex Gillen. So potentially the strategy that Yorpa has gone for not working as well as he may have intended it to. Intermediates working to perfection at the moment. 1.2 becoming 1.1. It's like a ticking time bomb continuing to tick down like they're cutting down trees. And right now, it is P3 hunting down for P2 as Safso picking up a 3-second time penalty for track limits late into this race. Not what they needed as they get onto the pit straight. Obviously no DRS, but switching over to the outside line where they go offline, trying to avoid any type of slipstream and tow that the V-Carb could pick up. And you can see Tom 97 in P3 really starting to cut down that gap. He wants an opportunity. Another driver for an opportunity is Tom in P6. Can he make the move stick against Tiamat Mardik? It was a work in progress to cut down that gap, but eventually it doesn't come to anything.
It was close there by Tom. He'd been lining it up and seeing what Tiamat Marduk's been trying to throw down on the boards. But right now, Tom thinking about that move, was that a send from the heavens, so to speak? And Tom 97 now will get 3 seconds for his troubles as he goes off the circuit. So now he's got to put 3 seconds on Yorpa now if he wants to try and get through. Now, Tom 97 didn't only just win over at Interlagos last week here, Jay, but he did so with 3 seconds worth of time penalty in his back pocket. So is this going to be something similar right now for Tom 97? And is he going to need a little bit of help from someone having an issue out on track to put himself back in the window?
And just for the sake of it, for the last 2 Grand Prix that have taken place, the race winner has won with a 3-second time penalty. So will the pattern continue to occur with Tom 97, who's now only a 1/10 off Yorpa going into turn 1? He takes the inside line, uses the rubber from the intermediates that continues to plant itself on the drier line, gets the throttle down, and Williams has to back down. No opportunity on the older intermediates, and by the time they rotate round, even using a bit of the curb, leaping around, and that sees himself down to P3 with F2 Scott picking up a 3-second time penalty for his troubles.
Yeah, you can definitely sense that there are troubles out there, that drivers aren't necessarily getting what they want out of the tyres, that they are battling the conditions at this moment in time. Dart Viper over the radio. Rain is going to get lighter soon, and that might just be a saving grace, and that might be just the reason why everyone's been staying out on intermediates there, JP, because they realise, well, the rain's going to get lighter at some point, and we're not going to have to worry so much about that temperature window because there's going to be less to deal with. Yorpa now puts 3 seconds in the back pocket.
Oh, no. And Williams did not need that 8/10 off Tom 97 and obviously lost out to the V-Carb there, but it's just a shame. We've had such fantastic racing, but this is Hungary. This is exactly what we expected White lines will absolutely demolish your race like your life depends upon it. They will see you, they will hunt you down, and eventually they'll catch up to you by you constantly cutting that white line, and they'll tell you, they'll knock on your door and say, it's time to pay up. Here's your 3-second time penalty. But here is Tom on the inside line, 2 abreast with Tiamat Marduk. They're practically squeezing one another. It's almost Max and Lando at Austria-esque type of squeeze, but you can see out of the exit, they're still 2 abreast. It is Tom with no DRS because of the rain that continues to pour. And now look at the switchback that Tiamat Marduk is looking for. Slight contact to the rear diffuser, and the Alpine of Tom continuing to defend on the inside line. McLaren has an option to potentially make a maneuver up towards the top of the hill at turn 4. Doesn't do it. Also blocked due to the fact, because of the fact that he was on the outside line, parking it like a bus. But look at Tiamat Marduk now on the outside line, onto turn 5, kicking it on the rear due to the rain. And now, due to the throttle input that Tiamat Marduk put in, and also because of the rain that affected his grip, it's keeping Tom in P5. Wow, the racing never wants to slow down.
No, it really doesn't here, and Tom, realising that move, how important it is, gets the clearance on Tiamat Marduk that he wants, and now can start thinking forward at El Rey Geary. They've cost each other 1.7 seconds on this lap alone because of it. Tom 97 is quick. I need to push and protect the rears. Well, yeah, he's quick, Alex, but you got 11 seconds effectively in the back pocket to deal with. So he's got a lot of time to try and work with to manage this one with 22 laps to go here at the Hungaroring. So that is where focus has to be placed. Tiamat Marduk realising that after his qualifying in 13th, that this is brilliant out there in terms of what he's got. I do want to point out that Safsho is probably having some connection issues out there right now, Jamie, and that's why he's leaving and rejoining the session, because he's sometimes having to let AI take control of his car, and that's why he's dropping so quickly down the order.
Oh, unfortunate for the Alpine driver. It looked like everything was starting to come better in his favour as well. So unfortunately, due to the AI, and we all know they drive at a pace slower than a snail, and it's just not going to work in his favour if he allows that AI to continue to drive. So if he can try and sort out the internet issues, well, that message doesn't help, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. But if it can be sorted, he will sort it, and eventually he will get under racing action again. It's just unfortunate that he now falls under too many positions that can be counted anymore. GB68, P10, now 1 second separated to Skyzy in the kick Sauber. So gaps increasing and decreasing depending on how much confidence and how long you really want to go on these intermediates. Like I said, these inters can go for a long period of time due to the fact that they're grooved and due to the fact that they can get a little bit more air flowing through them. They can have a bit more breathing space. They can stay in the tire temp window, and that's also why they're naturally colder. But also because they can endure just a little bit longer than what slick compounds do, because, you know, rubber doesn't flick and crack as easily. So using that, how longer do these drivers want to kind of push on these intermediates, and how do they want to try and use it towards their advantage?
Well, those are the questions that they have to ask inside the final 20 laps of this race. Alex Gillen, 7.5 seconds clear. At the front of this field, we focus on GB68, looking for P9 on MSkyZ. Now, there is a yellow flag out there in Sector 2 with a Ferrari of Infratic, who's going very slow on the wet tyres, and it looks like he's had a little bit of a tangle out there on track. Big kick of oversteer by GB68. Infratic's really been in the wars tonight.
Oh, 100%. He is, I mean, realistically, he's been in the trenches. He has fought neck and toe with every single one of these drivers near the rear end of the field, and he has really struggled to make any type of progress. Every single time he seems to make it up, it's just another bump in the road that seems to affect any type of advantage he seems to find and any type of exploit he could use towards himself. And right now it keeps himself in P15, luckily with no penalties to his name. Hasn't been caught out by the white lines, but position and gap says alone for his race so far in Hungary. But we know how good Infratic can be, just not his day today. And you can see Aston Martin, the GB68, 7/10 off Skyzy, with Safso now going up to P15 against Infratic.
Yeah, so there is certainly a sense right now that Emphatic here is going to have himself a world of hurt, and I think we're just about to see it here as he goes up through. He's got to cede the position, and this might actually have been with Yorpa out there, the Williams. So going up through this section of road, you'll see behind Tom 97 goes through, and then as he goes by, I think he has a massive moment there on the racing line. And that was dangerous how slow he had to go down to. Of course, it is mandatory you have to get out of the way in terms of a certain period. But at that point, Yorpa right there saw a ghost of his race.
See, I would almost argue in a lot of ways that Ferrari should have allowed the first car by and then continue to drive and go rather on the outside line or go around the corner, then allow the car to go by. Because where he parked himself on the entry of the corner practically, where that, look right now, on the corner we are now, look at where that dry line situates itself, on the inside. He was practically parked on the inside of that corner, and it meant when that driver went to swoop around the outside, he had practically the bad line in his favor. Now, I understand it's wet conditions, so in a lot of ways, that bad line that is considered bad in a lot of ways due to the fact that rubber flicking off of it, you know, that's still allowing that, you know, more racy line to be better in terms of grip and traction, and it meant that Emphatic probably compromised him more than helped him.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case there, and Emphatic being on the wet tyre, a lot of drivers are looking around, and there is a Sauber in trouble, and I think it's F1 Scott who's just had a spin out there, and he's able to keep going. Nogueira picks up 3 seconds of time penalty, but everyone's starting to struggle right now. I think those Inters are starting to feel a bit third hand, let alone second hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like I said, these guys are putting it to absolutely enormous lengths and distances that you wouldn't normally expect these tires to go to. Now, don't get me wrong, they can endure a lot, and they probably can push to this limit, but in terms of just consistent pace and traction, it will continue to fall away from them, and that consistency will become consistently going down in a downward spiral as time continues to progress itself. So eventually, drivers will need to make a switch, or they'll just have to hustle that car all the way to the checkered flag, knowing that the grip in their favor will continue to deteriorate. Oh man, me and ours in making it W's are deteriorate. Incredible.
Well, you can see the track deteriorating. You can see the tyres not necessarily in the best place in the world right now, but you are starting to see that lead gap going through. And F1 Scott does retire the car, and in the pits, he is out. So he will be the third car out of this race, and that will be a real shame for him, and he'll have to go on his merry way over to the next round of the championship. But Alex Gillen is slowly being reeled in. That gap now is 6.3 seconds. Remember, Tom's got 3 seconds worth of penalty. Alex Gillen, with 9 seconds to play with here, has just got to play the game, and he's got to play the game right as we focus here on GB68, as close as you like to M Sky Z. My word, he looks for it, but it's just that. It's a look.
Yeah, really starting to tempt a move here and trying to put the pressure on for Sky Z in the kick. Sauber, there's a bit of action right ahead of them as well, and it could end up being a four-way battle. That's a four-way battle will not commence, but it will be two abreast out of the exit of turn 3. Two abreast continuing up towards the hill at turn 4 in wet conditions. My, oh my. Talk about close racing on display. Look at the Ferrari in the background as well. Looks like it's going to be Dark Viper GT who wants a piece of the action, who currently fights into the exit of the first and into the entry of the second sector. And as you can see, Aston Martin holding the defensive part for the time being, but Kick is desperate to try and keep that momentum and make a move stick. And as laps continue to pass by, as we continue to approach near towards the end of the race, the question starts to deem itself: what do you rather want to do? Be desperate or be confident with yourself?
Well, that's the next question. M Sky Z losing out that place, and he might be out the top 10 if he's not careful, because Dark Viper has been fantastic in these conditions, and he might manage to manifest an extra one as he goes forward looking for it. Gets himself into the toe, thinking about where does he want to go and make this pass happen. Everybody's trying to back out of the way and stay out of troubles, because that was Emphatic versus Hoodie Pete as a race scrap to be had, and they will scrap on the back of this grid group now as they go forward, but ultimately that pretty much brings that battle into play as you look behind him. Fratic trying to run around the outside of 2, inside of 3's not there, and has to stick with 16th place against Hoodie P.
Great battle, but imagine the mentality that driver, obviously the Ferrari of Dark Viper GT, watching his teammate battle away with a Red Bull who is blue flagged by the other Ferrari, of course, Dark Viper GT, seeing them get so close to the rear diffuser and rear wing of his car, pretty much praying and begging for no contact to be made to him on the rear end of himself. And he'll be wanting to try and increase his pace and bring himself ever so closer to the kick Sauber of Skyzy, which is exactly what he's doing. Is he going to make a move down into turn 12? Well, he thought about it, searched it up the inside, but I'm sure it's going to be saved for the pit lane. And have a look, still right with them, is this battle for P16 between Bamford and Infratic, between the two Ferrari and Red Bull drivers. And it's been an incredible battle between those two right at the rear end of the field. However, I'm sure there is a fear, a tremble in the voice of Dark Viper GT as he wants that battle to continue to separate themselves. And unfortunately, he wants this gap to not separate themselves with Skyzy and P10.
Yeah, there's Hoodie P on the inside defending once again. The look then to the outside brings the inside into play as they go in once more on the brakes, trying to cut back is Hoodie P. But Infratic gets it done on his intermediate tyres. So he's gone off of the wet tyres, which aren't necessarily the best race tyre in these conditions. I think it's just slow because of how much tread's on that tyre, and that's the only worrying concern that they maybe have out there in terms of running wet over the course of the race. As, of course, this is a brand new build here, JP. Of course, a brand new game. So you do discover things like the wet tyre really isn't proving to be a race tyre in many scenarios.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, I believe last week was the introduction of the new version 1.6 introduced for F1, so I believe some drivers would be having a pretty good understanding, but traction was something that did change, including engine braking as well. Just overall, the sensitivity of things was adjusted and changed. If it was increased or decreased, I'm more unaware of, but however, that may also affect how cars may drive in wetter conditions and how they may affect a driver's ability and confidence. Overall, it seems to be pretty nurtured for majority of them, but there is a few that kick and squeam around on the tarmac, trying desperately, looking for any type of grip, and Ferrari inside line looking for it, trying to sneak a nose in, and that's exactly what I was talking about, using the curb for the rotation and trying to use the momentum to make a move. Outside line, Ferrari swoops around there, and what a fantastic racing, fantastic racing we are seeing on display, but Ferrari still right behind the kick Sauber.
Well, this is for a top 10 place, and Dark Viper here is finding that Skyzy, for all of the troubles that he's had this season, is still a formidable opponent to try and battle against. So just there, Dark Viper, not much that he can really say or do about trying to get by. He's just got to try and wait for the ultimate opportunity to present itself here in this race. This has been a tough battle here around a track which is so resource intensive, and you put it in the rain as well, and the resources just need to be multiplied. This is a tough race here today.
No, absolutely, including the rain, including dry conditions, including what happened in qualifying as well. Up and down throughout every session, throughout every driver, throughout the entirety of the field, no matter the tire, no matter what the situation may have been, no matter the distance they may have had to go to, every single driver has had their own struggle, and they've needed to try and do a workaround, compromise in some type of way for their overall benefit. And you can see, you're right, rain has stopped dripping onto the circuit, and this may be exactly what drivers were looking for, especially for ones that were starting to struggle, I mean, throughout the entirety of this raining period that we have seen. So maybe drivers that like a little bit more traction and grip, they're getting exactly that, a gift pretty much mended right for them.
Oh, nearly Dark Viper losing it. Surely now, Tom 97's got to make that call. With 13 laps away, Alex Gillen stays out, and Tom 97, I believe, also stays out then in that group. We've got a yellow flag out there in Sector 2, as that is going to be, I believe, the other of the Alpines there. So that's Safsho, who's gone around out there, and Meraki finds a way by. And of course, that Safsho struggling with connection issues right now. And we've also got an issue out there in the first corner, it seemed there. So another driver running into troubles. But now, surely, you've got to dive in. You've got to get some tyres on that says you can attack to the end of this race.
You can see on the broadcast camera as well, there is a glare of sun. It is clear to see that it became the, heavens opening up here in Budapest. Now it is the clouds opening it up for a perfect sunshine to fall upon the track at Hungaroring here in Budapest, here in Hungary. And this is exactly what every driver would love as a scenic ending, but maybe not how every driver would like strategically wise. So Alex Gillen still staying out, same with Tom 97 and Jorpin, majority of the front end of the field. It's going to be interesting when they decide to pull the trigger. I mean, right now, it seems to be, right now at this very point, where they should come into the pit lane. Not any more laps should they be wasting, because realistically, this track is dry. It's no longer damp. The cloud is starting to fall away and disperse itself in a replay.
Well, you can see here, getting right back up into racing. That's the struggle that you see from what is Safsho out there on circuit. He's just got no rhythm because he's constantly having to jump back in and hope that he's got a connection that works. He moves in through the right and suddenly, snap. Not much more you can do about that. You're not up together with it, and that's how quickly it goes. Now we've got takers. Jorpa is in the pit, and he will be joined by a couple drivers there. El Rey has made the call to jump in a little bit earlier than some others. So that's the decision being made, that drivers need to make some stops. And El Rey Geary here is going to be going all out for it, trying to save as much as he can as he goes through and gains a little bit more. He'll come back out in 7th position, and it's mediums to the end, which I find very interesting.
He must not have a new set of soft compound tyres. There is not an area or situation where you would not go for the C5 softs. Yes, they degrade quickly, but in a place like Hungary, due to the track and air temperature, due to the technicality of it, because there is a lot more low-speed corners than a lot of other circuits that you would find, those C5s is the perfect tyre choice. So I can only assume he doesn't have a new set of them and would end up finding more of a struggle than he would do if he went on a set of mediums.
Now, Gillen stays out and Tom 97 goes in. So now this is a big call in Alex Gillen's race. He's been waiting for Tom to make a move. And right now, Tom 97, I think, has just made the call to dive into the pit. So now you're starting to sit and wait and say, what have you got? DRS is enabled. No. Now there is no doubt that it is. The tyres are perfect for the mediums out there, or potentially the softs. In comes Tiamat Marduk, unstopped Rob surely has stayed out a little bit longer as well. Look at the sliding by El Rey.
Oh my God. I mean, you know what, there's no way I can really comment on it. Alex Gillen has made a mistake by not coming into the pit lane. It is the wrong decision to make. I mean, I understand there is track position. I understand he wants to try and stay out as long as possible and use the gap to try and come out staying ahead. But those slicks are going to have to get up to temperature. People like El Rey, people like Tom 97, people like Tiamat Marduk, they're all going to be on newer, fresher, warm, slick compound tires compared to Alex Gillen. And depending on how quickly Tom can bring down that gap to Alex Gillen, and also considering how quickly he can try and maybe, even if Alex Gillen does come into the pit lane, yes, he is in, and into the third sector. So here is where we really get to see a comparison. What is the gap that is necessary for you to stay out ahead? 24.5 seems like it would be enough, but he's already at turn 13 before he even got into the pit lane. So by the time he gets that throttle back down, hits the loud pedal, he does come back out ahead. But what is the gap that separates them? You can see in the distance, you can't see a V-carb, and Haas still can't see him in the rear end of the car, even out of the exit of turn 1. So Tom 97 potentially still on the back foot. I mean, he's still got a 3-second time penalty. And Jorpa as well with a 3-second time penalty.
He does. I think Jorpa's the one who's got to look out and is in a little bit of trouble here, thinking about, well, what's next? What can I do? out there because he's got exactly 3 seconds to Elray Geary, with Tom and Tiamat Marduk out there a little bit further behind. Tom has leapfrogged Tiamat Marduk in the stop, so that puts Tiamat Marduk back in 6th. But Alex Gillen is in pole position to go and win this race. And you look at Dark Viper in 10th, he's got 9th on the mind, GB68 just in front.
No, absolutely, and there is complete and utter intentions, but this is the saying I have followed as a commentator since the start of time for myself, and that is, do you go desperate or do you keep your confidence with you? Do you want to send down a move too early and potentially ruin a perfect opportunity to make up a move? Do you keep the confidence on your side? Wait until you are absolutely sure that you can make that move, then send it, keep it, and make sure it does not go back in the favor of that driver that you made the move on. Desperate or confidence, that is where it lays upon, especially with 8 laps remaining here for the Hungary GP. Wow.
Well, driver of the day is open for you in Twitch chat. You can use ! driver of the day to vote for your favorite driver out there, or the driver that I believe has done the best in this race. And in terms of this one, you've got many candidates out there who could be considered for that driver of the day category at this moment in time. But you are really getting a sense of what these drivers want and how quick they're trying to run on low fuel. This is the ideal scenario out there. Dark Viper on softs trying to find his move. There's Tom97, and he is carving that gap down to 3.1 seconds out there. Even if he's got 3 seconds worth of penalty, the one thing he's got to do is scare Alex Gillen into a mistake.
Well, only 3 seconds being the deficit, all it takes is to pressurize himself by catching up to the Haas, and he does exactly that by doing that. A 1:16.535, the fastest lap of the race so far, and if Tom97 can bring down that deficit to a point where he can pressurize Alex Gillen, not just virtually like right now, but physically be right behind him, it could lead to a race-ending mistake, or at least causing himself to lose out on position. We'll have to wait and see. There isn't enough time remaining at the moment, 7 laps to bring down 3.1, and it's clear to see Alex is still comfortable on those slick compound tires, so it is going to be intriguing for the remainder of this race.
Well, Alex Gillen's got a bit of lap traffic here that he's having to try and navigate, so that might slow him down a bit, and he might have just been told to turn up the wick, so to speak, because Tom97 is out there and is charging with a purple middle sector to go as well. That gap now down 2.8, 2.7. You're getting a sense of where Tom97's quickest. He's so good in this final sector. He's got a V-carb on wheels at this point, and DRS will be a little bit helpful there for Alex Gillen. He'll be able to bring that time back out a little bit by a couple bits, but now Tiamat Marduk, who will be desperate to now chase down some time, he needs this pass on Tom. This is damage limitation. If he can only lose 2 points in the championship, he will be smiling from ear to ear thinking, I did the best I could out of a bad situation.
Absolutely, and McLaren do need this for this championship fight to keep it alive.
Stay by Gillen!
And Tiamat Marduk is going to send it down the inside.
What?
Late braking! Alpine goes right into Tiamat Marduk. Contact is made, and that is race ruining, both from a championship position, but potential damage for the team from walking, and that has gone horrifically wrong. McLaren being beaten to the side pod by Tom, and P5 for the Alpine, P6 for the McLaren.
Got to go to the race lead. Alex Gillen has dropped his 3-second lead out here in this one, and we've got to have a look at it, because now Tom97 is right in the wheelhouse to put pressure on the Haas driver. This is a huge moment in the course of this race on blocking as it's gone through, is what we're hearing at the moment through communication. So now what have you got? Alex Gillen hard over to the inside. Tom97 searches for the outside. He comes back up and under, and now looks for a bit of DRS to try and find his pass for the race lead, and looking on that outside line, he will stay and look and search, but again, it's not there down the inside at 3.
The hunt is continuing here at the Hungaroring, all the way towards the top of the hill at turn 4. The race and the hunt is on, and you can see how much Tom97 wants this. If he has an opportunity, he will take it with both hands on the trophy. Lap 65 of 70 on a 4.381 kilometer circuit. He will take every single centimeter that he will take to use the pace to bring it closer than ever before to potentially make this not only a P2 but a race win. He has a 3-second time penalty. If he can make this count, he will. VCARB against Haas, Haas against VCARB. DRS in the favor of Tom97, and with the DRS now on rear wing, inside line, down the inside goes the VCARB, and look at the Haas defending, making sure to put it all on the line. Incredible racing.
And now on that inside line, Tom97 has got his solace. He's got his move, and now 3 seconds is all he needs. He's got to break DRS and run. He's got 5 laps to make 3 seconds. He needs 0.6 of a second, a lap, to get himself there. Alex Gillen, you must time trial to your very, very best, because Tom97 has done this once before, and this time he's not going to get help from battling behind. He needs pure pace. Tiamat Marduk back down the inside of Tom. Little bit of carbon fibre goes flying everywhere, and there goes the move, and there finally is Tiamat Marduk getting what he wants, and Tom's gone and got himself then off the road. Tom's out in trouble, huge trouble, and that's his race. Look at it, it's 8 seconds. He's gone off.
It's gone horrifically wrong for the VCARB. That is not what he needed in any situation. And Tom97, the one opportunity, the one chance he had, and it's been thrown away down to P2, and he has to keep that position to Yoppa, because look at him, the Williams is only 7/10 off. He may even lose P2, but we focus on the battle with Tiamat Marduk and Tom in P6. The Frenchman wants to get ahead. Tiamat Marduk wants the championship points. We go to the pit straight, and Alpine with DRS will use the slipstream and tow down the inside. Goes the Alpine driver. Can he make it stick? It's 2 abreast, and Alpine will get DRS again. Once again, flat to the floor, pedal to the metal, and can't seem to get it done. Yorpa is up to P2. The Williams got the job done, and Tom97 has thrown it all away in a moment's notice.
That is how quickly it can go wrong. And Tiamat Marduk has got his move, he's got his place, but Tom's going to fight him every stage of the way. And Unstopped Rob might want a piece of the action, because he's in the mix as well. Yorpa now through on Tom97, who's fallen back to 3rd. And with 3 seconds of time penalty, he'll effectively be 4th position out there in this race, because Elray Geary is going to pick up that place and gain 2 more seismic championship points, and that consistency value continues to smile on through. Tom staying close once again through the penultimate corner, now eyes up his opportunity against Tiamat Marduk, but look at that gap at half a second. He's going to have to come back from a league away, JP.
Yep, and it has not been an easy fight between these two. They have been neck and neck at each other's throats, looking for any opportunity to potentially keep it in their favor, stamp it into place, and send the envelope to the other side of the world so it can never be touched again, and so it can be kept in position for one of these drivers. Tiamat Marduk wants the championship points so he can keep this championship as close as it's been, and make sure that going into Belgium, we can have a fight all the way to the end of that checkered flag. But before we get to that, we have a replay to have a look at. This is Tom going wheel to wheel in battle with Tiamat Marduk. Inside line, oh, slight contact, and then Alpine. And this is what we saw earlier when he went directly into the side pod. And I wonder how that will be viewed by anyone else that may have been watching along there. That got way too close for comfort.
Yeah, that's what happens when you squeeze the driver over to the outside. It gives them no room in terms of the brake. He tried to funnel back through and send to the inside, and Tom effectively running straight into the side pod. Alex Gillen will be your driver of the day with 36% of the vote. Not quite Alex Gillen's face. That was there's a little
he grew some hair. He grew some hair, clearly.
He did. And just like that, Tom still can't get there with a lap and a half.
Oh dear, and Alpine and McLaren on the penultimate lap of racing still don't want to give this up. Here in the Hungaroring, here at Budapest, here in Hungary, they're going to send it all the way to the top of the hill at turn 4, and he had to back out of it. Quickly swoops back behind the McLaren, and they're going to go towards turn 5, sticking close to the apex of the corner. Pure focus and determination on both drivers here. A bit of a lock there on the front of the field, and they need to avoid any type of invalidation or any type of time penalty because it will be detrimental to the end of their race here. Skyzy in the kick Sauber, fastest lap on the soft compound tyre, 1:15.211. And now look at the Alpine going down the hill all the way towards turn 12. And Alpine continuing this fight with McLaren. It is still Alex Gillen, 12.1 out ahead.
Well, this is where final opportunities will present themselves. Tiamat Marduk and Tom. Tiamat Marduk desperate to hold on, and these two have got to try and chase down a full 2.3 seconds on this last lap to Tom 97. If they can, it's an extra place. Here goes Tom, outside line searching. If he wants to get this move done, he's got to do it here. Got to do it now. Tire to tire again. Tiamat Marduk stuck on the outside. Now needs to run the Oracle. Oh, he gets cheeky on that outside line. Cuts him back up inside. Slice and nice passing right outside. There goes Tom. Unstopped Rob will pick one up, and there goes another place for Tom, who will feel so hard done by this run. But we got to go to Alex Gillen now, because he is sitting so pretty. He almost had this race fall away in dramatic fashion, but he is someone who just grits his teeth and goes for it. It's a dominant victory margin by the end. Number 17 of his Creator Series career, and that might be the sweetest of the lot yet.
It's not done yet, though. Aston Martin versus Ferrari continuing their battle near towards the end. Tiamat Marduk completely ruining with the contact that they had. Whose fault it will be decided later. But right now, they're still battling out in the Hungaroring. Look at the Aston Martin and Ferrari. It's now GB86 who gets ahead of the Ferrari. This is for constructors' points. Who can stay out ahead? Right now, it's GB86 who defends like a bus parking in a parking lot. We mentioned this before. Look at the Ferrari, though, outside line, squeezing it. But it's Aston Martin who gets the throttle down, makes it around the final quarter. No, it's not a race win. It's not even a podium, but it is a fantastic defense, which puts him in P9 to P10, and that is how you race here at the Hungaroring Formula One Creator Series. Full stop with an exclamation mark line on top of it. Wow.
Wonderful racing right there at the end. Elray Geary was 2.5 seconds behind the line of Yorpa, and with the 3-second penalty, he jumps through into second position. What a mega drive late by Elray Geary, silent, assassin-like, when nobody else was looking. That's how he picks up some mega points out there overall. There was some wonderful drives through the field. Yorpa definitely deserved a driver of the day mention out there, but wowee, it's a big one for Alex Gillen to step back up into range and to say, I am still a part of this championship. Do not count me out. He is the first driver to pick up a victory and also pick up the intermediate fastest lap in qualifying as well. And that is going to be important on his charge to get back through, because he will gain 6 points and move just 29 behind Elray Geary with Spa on the horizon. JP, quite simply put, that was a wonderful race, and Elray Geary, on his worst day, you would say he didn't really show much out there, still gets second, and that is such a commendable bit of driving by the Spaniard.
And do you want to know a statistic that now stays around due to Elray Geary finishing in P2? The lowest position that Elray Geary has ever finished in a feature race, that full 100% race, is P2, the lowest that he has ever finished, and it is Alex Gillen on top, and that was a necessary win for Alex Gillen, not only for the championship, but for a man who missed out on a race last week out, coming back to pick up the win in P1. That was a necessity for himself, and that is exactly what he needed to do. Fantastic job from the American constructor who got the job done.
That's what happened to Tom, and that is what took him out of contention. Front wing damaged as well, and, you know, his face just says it all. There, it's a gritted teeth. I knew that one. That was a chance of a victory. Gone, done, and dusted. And if he was out there pushing at the rate that he was pushing there, JP, he easily had the chance to take that victory at 3 seconds. That was a tough, I would say a brutalist moment for him in his season, and it sums it up so beautifully.
Yeah, and actually, if you actually paid attention from incidents that he actually had previously on, because it wasn't the first time that he actually spun on circuit, and if you look at where he spun on circuit last time round to that incident that he had where he went into the barrier, it's the same corner at the same barrier where he had that incident. So clearly a common occurrence that occurred, and just clearly not confident with when to get on the throttle, when to apply it with that confidence behind him, and it fell apart just like that.
It very much does, but we do have the opportunity to talk to some drivers, and
yes,
no further forward do we need to talk than to our race winner, Alex Gillen, who will be here along with us in just a few moments' time. And in fact, you know what? We're going to bring him in right now. Alex, quite simply put, that is a race win that rubber stamps everything that you're all about. You are the thinking man's driver. You are looking at everything out there in that race. And through all of it, even losing that race lead on circuit, it all seemed to fall in your hands by the end of the racing. Just sum up how you feel after what was an up and down and all around display.
My new alarm sound sorted. I want that every single morning when I wake up. More of that, please. That was a delightful little spiel. But yeah, what a race! What a race! I personally prefer races without safety cars. I appreciate it makes the gaps big, and you know it would be a bit more spicy with safety cars. But you know, when there's no safety car, it's all about who's the most consistent, who's keeping out the walls, who, especially in those conditions. We were on inter tyres in full wet conditions. It was not easy. Tyres are wearing. Who looks after their tyres better? It was very much a race of attrition, that one, and I was just about able to keep it out of the walls. I don't know if you caught my moment, but there was a bit of a moment there when I went for fastest lap that very nearly ended very differently. But I did just about manage to keep out of the walls, and that was definitely a spicy one for me. It cost me about 3 seconds or so to allow Tom 97 in. But yeah, I'm buzzing. What a race. Loved it.
Well, you've got yourself a victory. It comes off of a non-start last time out. You're starting to think about what it is that you're bringing here. You've got your 17th victory here in Creator Series, and you're just going from strength to strength. So with your second race win of the season, how important is it for you to try and close down that gap to those top two? It'll be a little bit easier for you to catch Ben, of course, who didn't have the best results today. But El Rey Geary is proving that his consistency is very much king. How do you pull back a gap against someone who magics up a podium finish almost every time he starts?
I mean, I don't mean to bring down the hype, but Aero's already got it, to be honest. His consistency this season is out of this world. To start a brand new game, first season Creator Series, and be as consistent as he has. Not only is he up his game compared to last game, you know what I mean? But his consistency really is out of this world, to be honest. Like I'm not sure the last couple of races, but I know he was always in the top like 3 in quali for pretty much the whole season, which is just ridiculous with how close this series is. And yeah, he's just always there. P2 again for him today. Like frankly, he's unstoppable. I think someone's gonna need to bring something big to beat him at any point in this game at the moment, over the course of a season, because yeah, his consistency is insane. Unfortunately, I'm missing another race in a couple of weeks' time, so yeah, it's not going to be me that brings it to him. Maybe Ben could do something, but you know, you got to take hat off to it when he's that consistent, because it's absolutely out of this world. It's a fair play to El Rey.
Well, you got to make hay while the sun shines then in terms of what you're looking at in your Creator Series this time through. It's Spa next week, which I believe you're going to be at, so talk us through, is that a track you like, dislike, and what are you looking at there at Spa in terms of continuing on the form that you've managed to display here today?
Obviously, it's a very different high-speed circuit. Yeah, I quite enjoy Spa. Obviously, redone for this year's game, and it is a lot more enjoyable. I never really loved it on last year's game, but this year's game, I enjoy it again. So, again, it's sort of, in a weird way, though, on this game, similar to this track, in that this game is very much a DRS game. Like, you know, tracks like Australia, Austria, when there's not many corners between the DRS zones, there's nothing you can do. You could be half a second lap quicker. You can't pull away. DRS is just too powerful. There's nothing you can do. And it's sort of, although it keeps the pack close, I'm sure it's exciting commentary. As a driver, it calms the race down a little bit because the pressure's off. You don't need to worry. Whereas tracks like Hungary and Spa, there's a lot of corners between the DRS zones. So actually, there is a chance to get out of DRS range. And that's where Tom Knight made mistakes today. He was pushing like mad, trying to get me out of DRS, which is possible on tracks like this. And that's what caused the mistakes. So yeah, looking forward to Spa. I do tend to prefer the sort of lower wing circuits, actually. The sort of high-speed circuit, so looking forward to that one next week, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be another spicy one. Fingers crossed I could be somewhere near the sharp end again.
Well, Alex, it is a race victory which you know more than anybody else in this field with the amount that you have. The floor is yours. Anybody you'd like to thank after this P1 finish today at the Hungaroring?
I mean, weird one. I'm going to thank my friend who's at my house right now. He's over for the weekend, and I've abandoned him for 3 hours to do this. And as I won, he brings me an Aperol Spritz in hand. So that's what I'm holding right now, sipping it. So we've got to give a special shout out to him. It's, yeah, it tastes incredible after a race like that. So, yeah, cheers to Joe.
Well, look at that. The Aperol Spritz is the drink of a champion. Alex Gillen getting the victory done and doing so absolutely fantastically. Jamie, you've managed to have a little wander down the paddock, so to speak, virtually. And I believe you've caught up with M Sky Z.
Oh.
I have. Skyzy, congratulations on what has been a fantastic race. In your favor. Obviously, podium picked up, not so bad. Obviously, just kind of speak to me about your race. Obviously, I think big thing overall was the weather. It was unpredictable, I think, overall. I mean, we look at qualifying, maybe that was foreshadowing for the future. You had to start in dry conditions, and then randomly it started raining and increasing in that rain, and it got to intermediate conditions, and then it dried up near towards the end. And similarly enough, when it came to the race, it started off nice and dry, normal strategy, procedure, and then the clouds started to increase, overcast conditions, and the rain started to fall. Kind of speak to me about your strategy and how you had to kind of improvise in your own way, and when to come into the pit lane. When was the right time to switch over, and when did you start feeling that grip leaving you?
Well, first of all, thanks for welcoming me. Well, first, the game didn't tell us that the rain was coming out. It was scheduled for the after race, so like the podium. So we all thought, oh yeah, finally a full dry race. I decided to start on mediums because for me the call was to do medium, hard medium on a dry track. And when we started, I started very badly. I took a very bad start. I lost 2 or 3 positions. And yeah, Jeff told us the rain was coming, which was a big surprise. It also told us it was coming for 10 minutes. So like only very light rain for 10 minutes. Guess what? It was not that light. And the rain was a bit longer than 10 minutes. So I just destroyed my own pace and my own race. I'm like very slow in the rain on this game. I feel like you have to drive like a madman to be fast, and I don't like the way it is. So I just struggle a lot in the rain. So my focus was just to keep it safe, not losing any positions until the second part of dry track comes. Sadly, I lost 2 places on GB and Dark Viper. So yeah, it was pretty much done. I lost maybe 15-20 seconds of pace compared to Miraki and Rob in front of me. So that's alarming. Because I think in the dry I had the pace. I could have been on pole today. In just before the race, I did 13.7. The pole was 13.8, and I still invited in my last lap, which would have put me in P3. So the pace in the dry was very optimistic for me, but I did too much mistakes. The start, the first stint, some contact with Ben and Noguera, which were my bad. So yeah, not a clean race, and sadly for me, that's only P11 with the fastest lap. So
Yeah,
that's
you
sad.
mentioned as well how you were like talking about how you drove like a madman, and obviously not personally you, just overall in the situations that you were driving. You know, there was a lot of aggression that was on display, and is that just overall how Hungary is because of how tight the circuit is? Does it kind of promote much closer and incident-filled racing that can cause to more collisions on circuit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to do an overtake on this track, you have to be with the guy you want to overtake. Like there are two people, the guy that overtake and the guy that got overtaken. So the two of them needs to be in the same line, otherwise that's a contact. And sadly for me, I had one contact with Ben trying to overtake him. Maybe he didn't see me on the inside. That's all right. And also I touched a little bit Tom, so. Close racing, maybe too close for comfort for them, but yeah, that's the track. And when you have like a big hairpin first corner, that's very difficult to just judge correctly the braking zone every time. Sometimes you can just be out of the limit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, next round on the calendar, we're going to be heading to Belgium at the historic and famous Spa-Francorchamps. So, talk to me, how confident are you feeling about that? High top speeds, especially through Eau Rouge, and then you get to Radion, and then the Camel Straight, and then considering the technicality of Sector 2, you know, all the chicanes, and then going downhill in elevation, no-name corner as well, carrying decent speed as you go through the left-hander, and Pouon as well with good downforce, can definitely be taken flat. So, kind of speak to me how you may be approaching that race, how you maybe want to be setting up the car, and what the overall plan is going into it.
Well, that's a very nice track to drive. Maybe not with an F1, but that's a very nice track to drive, especially on F1 24 where the full track has been modified. But I won't be there next week. I just don't want to race at Spa because I hate the track, so I just won't be there. But I feel like it will be very interesting, mostly because of the GRS train. So very interesting to see if people are going for downforce setup or straight line speed setup. It will be maybe both. So it will be interesting to watch. I believe there will be again some rain because we got rain every race this season so far except Qatar and Monaco. So 7 out of 9 I think, or 6 out of 8. I don't know.
Right.
So probably some rain in Spa. So yeah, it will be interesting to watch this. And I think everyone needs to watch the race next week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually watch the race.
No, absolutely. In terms of the championship, you are all the way down in P16. But using this result, this will push you up, I believe, way past Safso, F1 Scott as well, and Fradek as well. So you're definitely going up a few positions due to it. And just considering how you may be able to show a bit more of that consistency over time. Obviously, you said you may not be racing at Spa, and considering just races past that point. But overall, how are you going to maybe increase that consistency? Is it just going to be doing more practice, or is it just getting a better understanding for the circuit or the Formula One cars? I understand we're a few months into Creator Series, but also for F1 24. But, you know, sometimes understanding cars could take quite a while. I think we spoke with Hayden Gillis previously, and he explained how, you know, getting used to these cars can take quite a while, and even when you think you may have learnt it, then there's a whole new bump in the road that you need to overcome.
That's exactly that. I felt like before today, I managed to do some good pace. I had some good pace in the past, just couldn't show it, like in Brazil last week or in Spain a few weeks ago. I had some occasions where I was fast, but I just could not show it because I'm making too many mistakes and not a good strategy and so on. A lot of excuses, but that's the reality. Well, the plan for the next weeks are just to practice a bit more, like understand the cars a bit more. We'll get a new patch next week, I believe Monday, which will nerf the DRS and the slipstream. So will be maybe different races, maybe less DRS train, because I very much hate the DRS train. Even last game on F1 23, I wasn't that amazing when we had DRS train. I was very good at races where you have to manage the fuel, manage the tires, Be on your own and manage everything. I was very good on those tracks like Japan, Hungary, etc. So we'll see. In my own case, I will just practice more and just prepare myself for the next season, because this season is already screwed from my perspective. So I will just practice and be ready for September, taking those next 5 or 6 races left to be online with what I want to do with the training and the pace. So we'll see. I will take those like a big free practice.
Yeah, well, either way, Skyzy, congratulations on what has been a fantastic result for you here in Hungary. Hopefully more consistency coming your way. Maybe or maybe not showing up in Spa. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, let's hope for more results like this for the future.
Jamie, you know, I finished P11, not P3 or not on the podium.
He's out. He's out, ladies and gentlemen. He's out. MSkyZ joining us there with a P11. The perfect there.
Fantastic finish. P11 with the fastest lap.
Got to take that. Absolutely fantastic. MSkyZ there joining us for the run. We can now take this time, at this moment here, to go look at our championship standings and see exactly how MSkyZ's supposed third position goes and lands as we go take a look at this one overall. And there you can see El Ray Geary still on top here, but Tiamat Marduk sits there and goes forward. We look right now at that gap, which currently sits at 22 points. Alex Gillen pulls the gap to Tiamat Marduk down to 8. Jamie, that's a close championship. Did you enjoy walking it off there?
You know what? We're just, I'm not here, but I'm here. So, yeah, no, in terms of the driver's standings, though, moving away from what was a P3, El Ray Guri has increased his championship lead. No surprise there, even though he was out of position, so to speak. It was P2, but for El Ray Guri's constant consistency, it is technically out of position. But Tiamat Marduk will take the points that he can get. He isn't exactly off by a far margin. All it takes is a good result, potentially a race win, and it can really help him bring himself much closer there. I'm going to sit back up now, but but either way, for the other part of the championship, considering Alex Gillen's, well, this was, like I said, a much needed win in his favor. You know, considering where he was previously before coming into this race because of missing Brazil for the Fan Vote GP, him picking up this win was a necessity. It wasn't something that could be done. It needed to be done if he wanted to stay in the fight. And even if he is speaking about how El Ray has won this and it's too far gone at this point, there are still races remaining. Tiamat Marduk isn't exactly off by a far margin, and neither is Alex Gillen. It's really anyone's game, and if you have the confidence, it's not exactly impossible.
It's just one non-finish that can bring this championship back together. You never know when it comes to the racing, especially sim racing that we've had here right now. You can catch us on all of our socials up on top, be it YouTube, be it Instagram, be it X, and be it TikTok. You can also follow us all on our links, which you can see in the Twitch chat if you haven't had the chance to already. From Jamie Perry and myself, Jake Sperry, a wonderful display of just letting the race drive over to you. Alex Gillen proves once again why he is the most winningest driver here in Creator Series. He simply put just waited and waited and waited. It was an effectively managed race. You could say that was a Tom Brady style performance that he was able to pull out here today. But this series does not stop. And next week we head to a circuit in the Belgian Ardennes, which is on the route of Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the famous cycling classic. It is the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, which is up next, and that might just be the greatest all-round circuit the world has ever produced. We will see you in 1 week, where that second half of the season finds itself in full play.
Bye.